Chapter 61 Golden Claw Mercenary Team. Jacob's eyes contracted after reading this and couldn't help but question. Explain. The writing changed. He, impenitent, aren't we? I already said, you might not will, so it still isn't clear. But I can tell that your mutated heart might bring you some benefits like a supernatural ability on this level. But as I said, it all depends on your luck. Jacob's eyes instantly shone with elation, since it was nothing but good news. However, it wasn't clear and Immortality also didn't explain clearly, and he knew asking it was meaningless. He yearned for a supernatural ability like in the fantasies. Although he knew he might get such an ability eventually as long as he cultivated this book on a high enough level, hearing it still made him elated and filled his heart with anticipation. But he quickly calmed down since he knew riling up won't do anything and sneered disdainfully. You only told me this because you felt bored again and wanted to motivate me into leaving again for your entertainment, am I right? Ha ha ha. I can't answer your question. Ha ha ha. Jacob shook his head helplessly since he could tell by that laugh. He was right and closed that pesky book. Nonetheless, he was still optimistic and headed toward the bath to clean himself first. Jacob appeared again with long hair and a clean face. His body had become even more devilish after 2 more injections, and he felt enormous strength in his muscles. After wearing a black shirt and pants, he ate 5 pounds of meat before he headed to his bedroom. There was a paper on a small table he took and saw the detail. C rank mercenary mission. Danger level C. Collect uncommon flora spider's venom glands. Reward 5 gold coins for each flora spider venom gland. On the other half of the paper was a picture of a leaf-like spider and its information. It looked just like a wither leaf, and that was why it was extremely difficult to find. Its poison was also deadly, and it could kill any normal human within 5 minutes after its bite. That was why this mission was for rank C mercenaries, and the reward was also lucrative. And this mission has no limit on how many venom glands you could hunt, and the agency will buy as many as you had. This was the exact mission Jacob wanted, and this spider existed in the deep southern parts of rainy mountain ranges, where he could hunt for heart essence as well. But this time he was going to carry over 2 metal boxes for heart and blood, and he was fully prepared. He waited for the night before he left the house without being spotted, and he was heading straight toward the southern rainy mountain ranges for hunting. In the central area of Rain Town, there was a 2-story house with a beautiful exterior. Inside the house, 5 men and 2 women were sitting around a square table, looking at the burly man with a mole above his left eyebrow. This man's name was John T, and he was the famous C-rank mercenary of Rain Town and quite active. The other 7 were his teammates and the members of the famous Golden Claw mercenary team, and all of them were D-rank mercenaries. John T had a mild smile on his square face as he said, "Did you find the new C-rank yet?" In reply, a man with a long black beard spoke. He was the vice leader of the Golden Claw team, Corbin. "No, he's still not returned to the town after he left for the mission, and the agency won't reveal the information about what kind of mission he took." John T's eyes flashed with a cold light as he said, "Is that so? Then forget it. I just want to invite this new guy for the Wolf King hunt to see his strength. But he's too inconspicuous, and if we wait any more, those 2 annoying fellows might join the fray of the Wolf King." Corbin nodded. "Yes, the agency leader is still absent and Ralph won't move without him, so we're clear for now to hunt." Another tall man spoke with a frown. His name was Tun. "But aren't we going too lightly? We're talking about a Wolf King of rare rank, which strength is only below B rank. I'm concerned." No one refuted Tun, since he was telling the truth, and they all looked at John T for his reply. Even the shrewd and obedient vice leader, Corbin, was expecting an answer. John T smiled confidently at this moment as he said, "I know your concern is valid, and it looks like I'm underestimating this Wolf King. But I have already talked with the leaders of Sharp Sword Mercenary Team and Purple Mercenary Team, and they agree to lend us their assistance in this mission by giving them 20% of the materials we'll get from the Wolf King's carcass." Corbin frowned. "I don't think they're enough. According to the information, there are many dark wolves around the Dark Wolf Ridge, so the more people we have, the better. Jonty pull a wintry smile. Hee, I have already taken care of it. I have announced that anyone who wanted to join our Wolf King hunting party, they are welcome, and there'll be more than enough cannon folds to distract those minions. Tan couldn't help but smile coldly and praise. As expected of leader, now we don't have to worry about meat shields, and we can also use them to weaken the Wolf King before killing it. We'll be famous. Jonty smiled in satisfaction and looked at the petite woman with black hair and asked, Nola, do you test the new recruit? I heard she's a thorny rose. Is she clean? Nola answered with a hint of unhappiness. She's quite something. Not only she's extremely overbearing, she even beat me and arrogantly said she'll change team leader next time. But she didn't have any hidden identity, and she'll be an excellent addition to our team. I'm only waiting for your confirmation. Jonty smiled hearing this, but there was a hint of desire in his eyes. Let her join this mission, and I'll see what she's made of. What's her name, though? Nola replied. Rosalia Lion. Chapter 62. A Strange Encounter. Jacob was hiding within a tree branch as he impassively looked at an adult moose drinking water from a small pond. However, he had no intention of attacking, as he calmly looked at the black moose like a predator waiting for his chance. Right at this moment, the moose seemed to sense something as it rushed toward the thick woods. But before it could, 5 small silhouettes lunged from the tall grass from different directions and stabbed their claws at the large body of moose, which ran wild while shrilling. These newcomers were crimson strip hyenas, an uncommon species, while the black moose was a common species, and Jacob was waiting for them to make a move before he does. And just as those hyenas were struggling with the mosses, Jacob pointed his revolver at the biggest one in the group and then pulled the trigger. Bang! The gunshot startled the animals, but it was too late for the targeted hyena as the bullet pierced into his brain, and it died within an instant. The other 3 hyenas were shaken as they abandoned the bleeding moose and ran for their lives, while the moose also ran wildly, but with all those wounds it won't be able to stay alive for much. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with Jacob, who was only interested in uncommon species, and he already got the heart and blood as well as his dinner. After making sure no one was nearby, he jumped off the tree and quickly headed toward that bleeding carcass. It has been 10 days since he left the rain town for this spider hunting mission, and he was quite efficient in his newly found strength. Not only his stamina has increased, but his speed and senses as well. That was why he could collect 3 uncommon hearts and blood, including this crimson strip hyena. However, he was losing interest in hunting these uncommon animals and wanted to find a rare species to test his strength, and they were also more potent and can give a high percentage of the heart essence. He even had the thought of heading toward the rare region for a moment before he brushed it off since it was still too dangerous, and it won't be too late to head there after he had a rank strength. He still hadn't forgotten about those mountain giants, and he wasn't sure if he could take a hit from them, even after becoming an A-rank mercenary. Nevertheless, things were going extremely smoothly, and he was very close to the place where the nest of flora spiders was located. I wonder if spiders have a heart. Jacob couldn't help but smirk at himself. Another night pass. The next day, Jacob was moved between trees as it has become his habit, and it was relatively safe to remain in these tree crowns as long as he didn't encounter any snakes or insects. At this moment, his step came to an abrupt halt as he hid his presence and looked between those trees a few tens of meters away with narrowed eyes. Thereupon voices of hoofs rang before a carriage covered in a black cloth pulled by 3 horses as a hooded man was controlling it, and 2 more riders in dark hoods were following this covered carriage appeared. They were slowly moving with the carriage. 3 hooded persons and cover carriage in this remote location. Not suspicious at all, Jacob thought as he deeply looked at the carriage. His eyes were fixed on that metal part that wasn't covered with the cloth, and he couldn't help but think, is this a cage carriage? But what is caged inside? Since they're moving this sneakily without any insignia or revealing their faces, they didn't want anyone to find out. I shouldn't get involved with these kinds of strangers. Jacob remained calm and let the carriage pass until he heard a reverberating voice which made him shudder slightly. Moo-ow. Those horses staggered as well. The hooded coachman shouted in panic. Quickly, it's awake again, use the tranquilizer. One of the riders quickly sprang into action and dismount the trembling horse. He then pulled a tranquilizer gun from the bagpack hanging around the horse and lifted the black cloth from the side. There was indeed a cage and something was inside. He shot the tranquilizer shot without any delay, and that voice quickly calmed down before vanishing. The rider couldn't help but sighed in relief. The effect of this rare-grade tranquilizer is started to diminish on it. We need to hurry, or we might get spotted by someone. You know what will happen if someone were to find what we are doing. The coachman sighed and shook his head. Do you think we have any other choice? Besides, you don't need to worry too much. This is the human kingdom. They didn't have many powerful beings in their ranks. As long as we remain careful, we can easily pull this off. Or we can just kill them if they get in our way. He sneered disdainfully in the end. The second rider's voice also sounded in agreement. Heh, as long as there isn't a B-rank mercenary blocking our way, we'll easily let this beast loose close to the Lionheart City and enjoy the show. They were about to continue their journey again when a nonchalant yet icy voice rang through the silent woods. So, this means there's a beast in this cage? Those three were startled by this sudden voice and become alert as they started to look around and pull their weapons, which were quite advanced in comparison to what Jacob saw so far. One of them was holding a shotgun, while the other two took out 2 pistols. Who are you? Show yourself, the coachman shouted as he held the shotgun with both hands, ready to fire at any moment. The voice rang again with a hint of ecstasy. Oh, you delivered a beast and some excellent specimens for me. How should I thank you? Chapter 63 Tiger Bull. The voice rang again with a hint of ecstasy. Oh, you delivered a beast and some excellent specimens to me. How should I thank you? The coachman holding the pump-action shotgun roared. Bastard, come out if you dare. They were all having an extremely hard time finding the location of this voice in those woods. But they hold their ground to wait for the person to make a mistake because they had a huge advantage with their guns. Jacob's voice sounded again with a hint of ridicule. Although this imitation of Ithaca 37 is good, its tubular underbarrel magazine can probably hold 2 12-gauge cartridge rounds at most. While the two of you were holding pistols which can only shoot water at most. So how about you leave all this and scram? It'll be a win-win for both sides, or trust me, you are all dead. There. The coachman quickly shouted and pulled the trigger, while the other two follow suit. They emptied their magazines in that direction and quickly started to reload. Don't say I didn't give you a chance. Just as Jacob's voice trailed off, a sharp gunshot reverberated in the vicinity. The coachman who was bussing loading the gauge was instantly sent flying backward as his head exploded. He also had. Before the rider could completely his word, another thunderous sound rang and sent him flying with a hole in his stomach. The last one wanted to run, but how could he escape Jacob's rifle? He was also killed with a headshot. The forest regained its calm as 3 mingle corpses lay on the dirt ground, and 2 horses were already fled and only the cage carriage remained. If it wasn't heavy, those horses would have already fled at full speed. Thereupon, Jacob emerged as he held the silver rifle with smoke rising from its muzzle. Although it was still the same, there were some changes with its trigger, chamber, and handle. Nevertheless, it was still far from an optimal rifle in Jacob's view. But beggars can't be choosers. Jacob looked at the corpse and his eyes contracted when he saw the face under that hood. It was a brown-skinned person with a long face and sharp teeth visible from its mouth, and he looked at the others, but their faces weren't intact anymore. Yet their skin color was the same. Hob trolls from the Earthen Kingdom. Jacob quickly identified them because he had seen the Hob trolls pictures in the history books. So, they were sent here to cause trouble with this beast in Gloria country. It seemed something was going on in the shadows between the 3 kingdoms. Well, it has nothing to do with me, since I reap a huge harvest. 1 uncommon heart from Hob troll and of course, this beast. Jacob sneered as he collected the loot first. He first collected the heart and blood of 1 hob troll, before he picked 2 lather bags laying on the ground and their firearms. My storage space is completely full, and I can only store 1 more heart box in the pendant. I have to carry these bags and firearms. It seemed my trip come to an end without completing the agency mission. Jacob smiled without any regret at all. The hunting and collection missions have a fixed time, 1 year, and if you took the mission and didn't complete it in 1 year, it'll automatically declare failed, and the mercenary only needed to pay 5% plenty the next time he collected another mission. So, Jacob wasn't worried. Even if this mission failed, he had gained far more than he was expecting, especially this caged beast, which was even more powerful than the Wolf King. He could tell by that roar. That was why he took the risk of exposing himself, because he knew if he missed this chance, he won't get another beast on a silver platter. As for killing these hob trolls, he cared little since accidents always happened in these vast mountain ranges, and he also got more guns to work with, and those tranquilizers that can put this beast to sleep were also quite interesting. Jacob put the bags and guns on the front of the carriage where the coachman's things were, and everything was Jacob's now. After putting everything on the carriage, he finally lifted the black cloth and saw the beast inside. And he was astonished when he saw the creature. It was a crimson bull with tiger-like white straps around its body and huge bull horns. Tiger bull. Jacob quickly remembered seeing this beast in the book he got from Decca. Tiger bull were extremely vicious creatures, and they were at the very apex of the rare beast list because they were carnivores and had extremely strong bodies almost like iron, and it was written that if their skin were a little bit tougher, they would fall into the rarer beast category. Nevertheless, this was a tremendous surprise because these hob trolls somehow managed to capture this tiger bull from the rare region, and they were extremely hard to find as well. It seemed this plot was far more complex than it meets the eyes. Jacob guessed someone was scheming something, and these three were just pawns. If they succeeded in releasing this tiger bull into the Lionheart City, then there would be huge casualties, as it wreaked havoc and only B-rank mercenaries can hold their own against this tiger bull. I'm also going to cross the 10% hurdle, and I just happen to need meat like this tiger bull. So I can't kill it here, nor can I leave it as it is. They clearly said the tranquilizers are losing effects, and it can break free from this cage as well. However, the Lionheart City is still quite far, so they had to have enough tranquilizers for the trip. Jacob quickly moved toward the front and checked those bags. There was a total of 8 bags, including the ones on the carriage, and he opened them one by one. Chapter 64 Gossip of the Town. Just as Jacob thought, 3 of the bags were filled with tranquilizer shots, and they were a total of 120 shots, and he mused one shot would last for 8 or 10 hours because only with this ration one could reach the Lionheart City with this much supply. 2 of them were filled with dry meat and water, while the last 3 were probably the personal belonging of those 3 hob trolls. He found a total of 143 bullets for all the firearms, 3 mercenary IDs which were affiliated with the Earthen Kingdom, nothing to surprise about, 3 long knives, 433 bronze coins, 303 silver coins, and 105 gold coins. Lastly, he found an unopened envelope with a sword stabbed into a human skull insignia imprinted on the back. Interesting. Jacob opened the envelope. But he frowned when he saw the letter inside was filled with symbols, and nothing makes sense. An encrypted letter? There's a conspiracy behind this, and they are superb at hiding their tracks. This letter was probably meant for someone important, and only they could decipher this letter. Or even if something happened just like now, this letter will be useless even if someone read it. Jacob smiled and stored the letter and envelope away. Although he wasn't interested in the politics of this world, he was interested in information because nothing was set in stone, and he might need this information someday for his own use. Afterward, he controlled the carriage and changed its route, and headed toward the Rain Town. He was planning to hide this tiger bull in a remote region before he would quickly make a trip to his house and make an injection of heart essence and then absorbed it close to the carriage. After he reached the 10% mark, he would then slaughter this tiger bull and collect his heart and blood before devouring it for nutrition before coming back and continuing to create reaming injections. Although his plan seemed flawless, nothing was flawless when nature was involved. On the first night, the rain started to pour like mad and the carriage nearly turned upside down on a hill slope. If not for Jacob using his strength to keep it steady, he didn't dare to imagine what would have happened if that beast broke out of that cage. Jacob had already examined that cage, and he even shot it with his rifle, but it didn't leave a scratch on it. This made him excited since he could use this cage to forge high-quality gun parts. But he knew it was a pipe dream for now since it would take some time to set up a forgery and make the equipment he needed to work with. Furthermore, he didn't want to abandon this kind of lab in the future. So, he was still hesitant to decide and leave that thought for the future, when he would be powerful enough to protect his things. Anyhow, Jacob became more careful after that incident, and his pace plummeted. The travel that took him over 10 days to reach that point, it took him a whole month just to reach the outskirts of the rainy mountain ranges, and he was still half a journey away from the rain town, only if he traveled alone at full speed. Despite that, he wasn't planning to go there with this cage carriage, so he headed toward a remote area where he could hide this carriage. He quickly found an old cave that was abandoned by some wild animals, and it was size-wise perfect, as well. After taking care of the carriage, he first released those horses since he won't be needed them anymore and then break the wheels. Now, even if someone found this cage, they won't be able to take it away, and they definitely won't be crazy enough to provoke that tiger bull unless they had a death wish. After giving the tiger bull a large dosage of the tranquilizer, which was enough for 2 days, he hid the cave with a huge boulder and left toward the rain town, carrying those bags and guns on his shoulder. Dawn was already breaking, so he entered the town without any hitch. But he suddenly noticed the commotion on the streets and heard some bystanders talking about something interesting. "I heard the Golden Claw mercenary team came back yesterday after they left for the Wolf King's hunt with an enormous Wolf King hunting party. But the thing is, they came back empty-handed, and it turned out someone else has already killed the Wolf King, and they only found its bones and the agency refused to pay them without evidence of killing the Wolf King." A person gossiping in front of a butcher's shop. It's ancient history now. Just this morning, the leader of Golden Claw mercenary team, Jonty, with the leaders of Sharp Sword mercenary team, and Purple mercenary team stormed the gates of Town Lord Mansion and demand the rewards. They accused the Town Lord of publishing a hoax mission and wasting their time. But the truth is the wolf hunting party they gathered is demanding compensation for wasting their time as well. So they had no choice but to look for the Town Lord for payment, or they might go bankrupt this time. But seriously, just who killed the Wolf King and left it to rot? That person might be a B-rank character and killed it when he was passing by. Now the whole town is talking about this. The butcher presumed. Jacob smirked at hearing this and silently moved toward his house. He wasn't worried that someone would find out about him since nothing could connect that corpse to him. On the contrary, they might have found the bullet wounds on its skull, and the only one who was carrying this kind of bullet was none other than Gus's party. So, this thing might come back to bite that sole witness and survival of this entire hunt, Jennifer. Chapter 65 The Night Order. While Jacob was peacefully making the heart essence in his home, the Lord's mansion was extremely lively at this time. In the dining hall, Jonty sat around on the left side of this big rectangular table with an ugly expression on his face, while there were 2 other men with the same kind of expression sitting right next to him. One was a fat beard man. He was the leader of Sharp Sword mercenary team, Hoddy, while the other was a short man with purple long hair. He was the leader of the Purple mercenary team, Jet. On the right side of this table was sitting the Town Lord Kiran and his 2 younger brothers, as they looked at the 3 on the other side, specifically at Jonty, with hostile and outraged expressions. But no one dared to speak as their focus was on the mean seats of this table. There was an old man in black robes with scholarly air around him, while a young man was sitting on another chair with a haughty expression. Right in the middle of these 2 was none other than Jennifer, who has recovered and regained her aloof charm. But there was a hint of fear deep within her eyes, which she was trying to hide. The old man spoke impassively while he looked at Jonty and the 2 others. "So, you are the famous C-rank mercenary of Rain Town? I heard you were once nurtured by the house, Tarun, but then went rogue after having your way." Jonty's expression changed slightly as he felt a sudden chill in his spine despite being a C-rank mercenary. He couldn't help but felt dread from this old man and didn't dare to antagonize him with his arrogant attitude. "Sir Knight, don't believe in baseless rumors. I left because our beliefs were different, but I'm always grateful for the town lord's kindness and will repay it any time House Turan faces any danger. A young man who had some resemblance to Kieran retorted, "You dare to spout lies? Don't you betray us because you had a new master and were offered more coins." Slap. A sharp slapping voice rang in the entire hall. The slap came from none other than Kieran. His face was livid as he rebuked. "Owen, enough. Don't be disrespectful when Sir Knight is speaking." He then quickly looked at the old man and apologized. "Please forgive him, Sir Knight. He's still young and yet to learn his manners properly. In the humane kingdom, the Knight Order was above all and only below the royal family. Even the nobles were afraid of offending them because these knights were the protecting force of the kingdom, and they were extremely terrifying to fight with as well. In every noble household, knights were appointed as their protectors, but everyone knows they were more of watchdogs than protectors, and they directly report everything to the higher-ups. Even mercenaries were afraid of them, not because of the royalty, but because of the terrifying existences within their ranks. The strongest person of the humane kingdom was not a B-rank mercenary, but the marshal of the Knight Order. That was why those mercenaries don't poke their nose too much in the noble affairs, especially if that matter involved knights of any rank. Although this old man was only an 8th-rank junior knight, he was still a scary existence, and he can execute anyone as long as he had valid reason without giving any explanation to anyone, and his strength could rank in middle levels of C-rank mercenaries. That was why everyone in this hall was so tense since this knight showed up for the investigation of Gus's death, not the Baron, which was out of their characters since they won't normally poke their nose in the noble household's personal matters as long as it didn't affect them. When Jonty, Hoddy, and Jet stormed into the manor, they didn't know about the presence of this old knight, or they wouldn't dare to barge in so arrogantly, and now it was too late to escape. The old knight didn't say anything, as his eyes were fixed on the 3 mercenaries with clear contempt. The Knight Order had a very hostile relationship with the human mercenaries, not with the agency itself, because many promising youths decided to join the agency, which was lax and not like the disciplined Knight Order. But they also died in the agency much sooner because of other schemes and benefits. In their view, they should be serving their kingdom, not wasting their life in the wild while working for others. But they can't act against the agency because of the hegemony behind it, so they could only vent their anger on these humans who offer themselves to them. Jonty and the other 2 sweated in the old knight's sharp gazes and felt as if they were sitting on thin ice. Jonty couldn't help but say, "Sir Knight, we know we were disrespectful today, and we are willing to compensate and swore to never do any disgraceful act in the future." He then looked at Kieran and lowered his head. "I know my departure was sudden and without any prior notice, but I have my own reasons. But I'm telling the truth when I say I'll help the house to run if it ever needs me. Please forgive me." Hoddy and Jet nodded after Jonty, but the unwillingness in their eyes told otherwise. They were like 2 innocent bystanders who got dragged by that sly bastard Jonty into this, who told them they didn't have to pay those cannon folds with their own pockets as long as they forced the town lord. But now they were forced to pay without doing anything with him, and it was he who decided this for them as well. They silently decided to never collide with this sly bastard in the future, ever. The old knight suddenly smiled, but there was a hint of chillness as he spoke. Chapter 66. A Knight on the Case. The old knight suddenly smiled. "Since you seemed an upright person, I won't pursue the matter about you barging into a noble household under the Gloria Country Authority." Jonty and others have a massive sigh of relief, but the old knight wasn't done yet. This time, there was a hint of chillness as he spoke. "But each of you 3 has to compensate with 1,000 gold coins annually to Gloria City for 5 years. If you missed even a year here, I'll report this incident to the higher-ups." "What?" They were all shocked and panicked. 1,000 gold wasn't a small amount even for them, especially for Hoddy and Jet, who were only D-rank mercenaries. They might die in collecting this kind of wealth. "What, are you unhappy? Then how about joining the Knight Order?" The old man's lips curled. Jonty felt his misfortune was on a roll because first, he found the Wolf King was already dead and didn't get the payment. Now he was here to extort the town lord, But it was he who was getting extorted. He couldn't help but clenched his fist, but he didn't retort. He knew if Night Order acted, no one would save him, not even his backer. Night Order was infamous to be unreasonable when it came to mercenaries, so he didn't want to try his luck, nor did he want to join them since it was far more dangerous to be a mercenary. At least he had freedom. He gnashed his teeth and nodded. All right, we'll pay on time. You don't need to worry. Hoddy and Jet again cursed Jonty to decide for them, but they had no choice, so they agreed in silence. The old knight nodded in satisfaction. You may go now. I'll be waiting for your report. I hate those who go back on their words. He chased them away with a stern warning. Kieran, Owen, and the third Tarn brother couldn't help but admire the influence of this Night Order. They also felt quite refreshed when the arrogant Jonty, who was dancing on their heads for years, get taken care of with few sentences. Now there were only the three Tarun brothers, the old knight, the young man, and Jennifer left. The atmosphere was again tense when the old man looked at Jennifer with a smile. Little miss, you don't seem happy to see me? Jennifer's expression changed ever so slightly. She knew this old knight was a watchdog of the Night Order, and he monitored her father's every move. As for the young man on the other side, he was this old knight's disciple, and he was also her suitor. She would also feel uncomfortable in these two presences, but she knew she can't appear afraid, or they would notice something. She was long ready if such a thing would ever happen, but she still thought it was too soon and those people might have lied to her. Nonetheless, she won't be going down so easily. She smiled and said, Grandpa Austin, please don't jest. I'm the happiest to see you and Kai. Kai, who remained silent this whole time, spoke with a content smile. Jennifer, when I heard you were almost got killed by that beast, I begged the teacher to come here and take you back safely. So, it was this brat who moved this old thing. She couldn't help but get perplexed. She knew Austin doted on Kai the most and treated him like a son since he had no family. Kai also had a crush on her from childhood, and Austin made sure he would get her in the future as well. But she never liked Kai because he was too strange, and she felt uncomfortable around him when he saw her as if she was naked. That was why she wanted to inherit the Baron's position to have a say in her marriage, or she would become a tool for her father to curry favor with Austin. Austin chuckled. Heh, this brat treated you well. He nearly cried with joy when he heard you were safe and sound. Kai's face flashed as he lowered his head and mumbled. I was just worried about you. However, Jennifer didn't buy Kai's act and only pretend to be happy as well. Really? Thank you, Kia. You are so good to me. Austin looked at Kieran impassively at this moment and said, Do you find the whereabouts of the young lord and who killed the Wolf King? Kieran quickly replied while sweating. My lord, according to the agency, there were some fresh human bones found on the Dark Wolf Ridge, as well as the Wolf King. We presumed they. He hesitated to speak as he looked at Jennifer. Her eyes started to get misty. Austin got what he wanted to say and nodded. What about the person who killed it and how it was killed? Did they find their belonging? They were carrying the latest firearms with them. Kieran's heart palpitated when he felt Austin's piercing gaze. He took a deep breath to calm himself before he said carefully, The killer's identity is still unknown. As for how the wolf died, they said there were holes in its skull, made with bullets, but they didn't have the means to find out from which kind of gun they were shot. As for the belonging, I'm afraid nobody reported it. I think those mercenaries took them for themselves. They would never hand over anyone they found during the mission, nor would agency demand it. Austin fell into deep thought before he said while glancing at Jennifer subtly, I understand. But this Wolf King's appearance is strange. I would meet with the agency leader here tomorrow. You did well on your part. I'll handle this case myself now. Kieran felt as if he was pardoned from a death sentence. He was afraid that his family would get slaughtered under the pretext of Gus's death, but it seemed he had dodged the bullet. On the other hand, Jennifer's heart sank when she heard this. This is bad. Chapter 67 Titan Iron. At night, Jacob again sneaked out of the rain town and headed toward the cave, where he hid the cage carriage with Tiger Bull. He had already made a heart essence injection from Hob Troll's heart and blood, and it was in his pendant right now. However, when Jacob reached the hidden cave, his expression turned ashen because the boulder he used to close the entrance was now completely shattered apart as a huge bulldozer hit it. He ran toward the cave, and when he saw that one side of the cage was broke open, he cursed out loud. That damn bull escaped. Jacob couldn't help but doubt the tranquilizers because he clearly gave it an overdose, and it was enough to let it sleep for 2 or 3 days. But it didn't even last 20 hours. He suddenly had a dangerous proposition about this as he thought with a grim expression. Could it be that bull fake its sleeping hours, and when I finally dropped my guard, it took advantage? I still underestimate a rare species like tiger bull in the end. Fuck. However, Jacob knew there wasn't any reason to cry over spilled milk anymore. He had already done his best and just miscalculated the intelligence of a rare species. They adapt just too fast, and this was his first time experiencing this kind of defeat by an animal. Truth be told, it kind of hurt his pride. Nevertheless, he wasn't overly worried because he knew that bull would wreak havoc soon, and it won't be too late when it got spotted. Or it won't be too late to hunt it down himself once he broke the 10% threshold. He didn't mind hunting it down at that time, but now he was hesitating to inject this heart essence since he didn't know how much longer he had until he experienced that hunger attack. To find that answer, he summoned Immortality and asked, "Can you tell me how long I can last without eating after crossing the 10% completion?" However, as always, it didn't answer the question without its sarcasm. Ha ha ha. That little bull really pull a fast one on you, didn't it? Well, don't worry, you won't experience a hunger attack for 3 months after every 10% completion. And that's only if you don't eat anything. So, go for it. Can't you just answer the damn question for once? He rebuked and closed the book before it could say anything. I should head back and inject it when Pighead is head around. It's not safe here anymore with that livestock on loss. Jacob left the cave, but he didn't forget to take the broken cage with him. Even the tiger bull wasn't able to break this iron and only managed to break the bindings. Furthermore, despite this cage size, its weight was extremely light, only 150 kilograms, and, as for drawing attention, Jacob was confident in his speed. Even if someone spotted him, he could just say he was bringing it to raise livestock, which wasn't strange at all. This time he wasn't stealthy because of the enormous cage, but the guard didn't stop him from bringing it in since it was empty. But Jacob failed to notice just after he left that one guard quickly headed toward Lord Manor. Jacob's appearance was quite eye-catching because of his bright silver hair, and everyone knows in the Rain Town that the new C-rank mercenary had silver hair and a handsome appearance. Jacob reached Isaac's smithery, and when Isaac noticed the iron used in that cage, he nearly jumped in shock. "Where did you find it?" he exclaimed as if he was in a dream. Jacob coolly answered, "Don't ask a meaningless question. Can you work with it or not?" Isaac didn't ask again and thought for a moment as he shook his head with great regret. "I'm ashamed I can't craft it into those parts you ordered. If I'm not wrong, this is the famous uncommon grade Titan iron of the Earthen Kingdom. It's not only extremely sturdy but lightweight. I don't know how you get your hands on it, but just a gram of it worth 10 gold coin, and here we have almost 200 kilograms of pure Titan iron, which means almost 2 million gold coins. Only the Gunsmith Guild has this much Titan iron in their possession, and only they can help you with it." Jacob's eyes narrowed with a hint of disappointment, but he knew Isaac won't play tricks with him. As for those 2 million gold coins, he wasn't fazed by it at all. Money was the least bit of his worries right now, because he knew if he sold it to the agency, some people might take an unwanted interest in him or from where he got it from. Jacob asked, "Then can you make 2 short swords and turn the rest into iron bricks of 1 kg each? You can have 5 bricks, and we'll consider our account close." Isaac's eyes brightened hearing this. He knew even if someone had money, this Titan iron wasn't easy to get, and 5 kg of it was generous enough for someone like him who probably could never get into contact with this Titan iron in his entire life. He couldn't help but felt grateful to Jacob because, from the moment he met him, his skills improved tremendously. He was an honest man and an upright person. Furthermore, he wasn't greedy for momentary gains. Additionally, He knew someone like him won't be able to survive with this much wealth, so it was enough to just have a good relationship with Jacob. He replied, "I can do that. Your previous order would take 3 more weeks and included this order. Give me 1 more week." Jacob shook his head. "I need those swords in 2 days. You can take your time with the rest. But don't show this to anyone, hide it. I don't want unnecessary attention, and it would also put your life in danger. I hope you understand." Isaac thought for a moment and nodded solemnly. "Don't worry, I understand. You can collect your swords in 2 days." Chapter 68 Visitors. Jacob returned to his house and directly entered the basement to start the injection procedure. This time, when he took the injection, his expression suddenly changed when that hot essence started to course through his veins. This time he felt a sharp pain in his blood vessels and his heart seemed to be expanding in his chest and then reducing. Suddenly, he heard a cracking sound that was coming out of his rib cage, and he caught up blood and groaned in pain. Just what is happening? He was in extreme pain, but he could still bear it. But he could also feel those bones were mending slowly, as the pain was also decreasing. He wasn't in impending danger. The dark mark in his heart was also becoming more and more visible with every heartbeat. Thereupon, Jacob noticed dark blood coming out of his chest pores before it spread all over his body. Even his eyes were bleeding in dark blood. But this time he didn't feel any pain, but as that blood was gushing out, he felt lighter and lighter. This process only lasted for 5 minutes, and so was the essence absorption process, since it was only from an uncommon species. Furthermore, Jacob could feel the change in his heart rhythm, and it was almost soundless, and his body had become weightless. He felt it was someone else's body. As he tried to stand up, his palms left a deep crack on the stony floor, but he could also feel the pain in his hand. He exclaimed, "It seemed I got more power than my body could handle, and if I used it carelessly, I might get hurt. I have to start eating soon." I could feel that light hunger again. Jacob noticed the process only lasted for over 15 minutes, and he mused it was because the more heart essence he absorbed, the faster the process would get. He straight-headed toward the bath before he cleaned himself, and he noticed he had become slightly burly from his ripped self and slightly taller. After cleaning himself up, he took the advantage of the nighttime and started to turn more heart and blood into heart essence. He wasn't planning on leaving until he absorbed all the heart essence, and he still had 2 days until his swords got ready. Afterward, he was planning to look for that tiger bull on the run. He was extremely confident in subduing it now with his current strength, and it was also the only piece of nutrition that can help him convert his body in one fell swoop, not to forget about its heart essence. This time after making an injection, Jacob didn't wait or go into the basement and directly absorbed it, and just as he suspected, the heart essence of this uncommon crimson strip hyena got absorbed in 5 minutes, and he didn't feel any change at all. Although, I'm raising the percentage. But at this rate, I might need hundreds of uncommon species to complete this process. Jacob mused as he put another heart and blood into the boiler. Nah, I'm too impatient, like the old days. I should calm myself down and think with a tranquil mind. Jacob smiled and returned to this resting position. However, after he just absorbed the 3rd uncommon heart essence and was about to put the last one on the boiler, he heard a sharp knock on his door for the first time he came to live in this house. It seemed news of my return spread quite quickly. Only those bigwigs around here will try to approach me though. It might be cumbersome to offend them for no reason. Let's see who you are. Jacob hid the distillation equipment and headed toward the door. He wasn't afraid of anyone in this town or in this kingdom as a matter of factly right now. So, he didn't have to hide his face here anymore. This heartbeat rhythm is quite peculiar, calm, and sturdy. At least AC rank. The other is slightly fast while the 3rd one is seen to be in high gear, probably, agitate. Jacob's hearing has become extremely precise after this small breakthrough, and he started to notice unique heart rhythms. This could be a terrifying ability if he could refine it to a top level. But he wasn't even close yet. Just as the door opened, an old man and a youth appeared in his view. Surprisingly, they were Austin and Kai. Behind them was the butler of Tarun's house, Harland, with a somewhat pale expression on his face as he looked at Jacob with somewhat apologetic, yet uneasy eyes. "What's the deal with him?" Jacob looked at the refined old man in butler clothes and wondered. But he merely glanced at him as he looked at the old man in a blue suit. He impassively said, "What do you want?" Harland wanted to warn Jacob about Austin, but he knew better, so he remained silent since he knew Austin and Kai had followed him for some other reason. If he messed it up, it might inflict the house, Tarun, so he could only watch helplessly. Who would have thought this old knight would be interested in meeting with Jacob, the new C-rank mercenary of Rain Town, and followed Harland here when he was about to come with a meeting gift from the town lord? Harland knew if Jacob had a poor impression of the house Tarun, they could just forget about his friendship. In the end, it all depended on Austin now. Austin looked at the silver-haired young man, and he suddenly felt he wasn't just merely a random C-rank mercenary like Jonty. He was full of openings, but Austin has this strange feeling that if he made a move, he might regret it. Austin smiled amiably and said, "I'm Austin Port, an 8-rank junior knight. I'm here out of curiosity. Please forgive my blunt visit." Kai couldn't help but looked at his teacher with a hint of a surprise because this wasn't his usual style to talk with these mercenaries. Chapter 69 The Three Hegemonies. Jacobs cocked an eye when heard the word knight. He naturally knows about the backbone of the humane kingdom, the Knight Order. It was not because he was curious. It was because these knights had too many storybooks about them. It was quite clear that it was done deliberately to encourage the knighthood within common folks and inspired them to join the Knight Order. However, Jacob has nothing to do with those folktales, and he wasn't interested in becoming a knight, no matter how many benefits they would offer him because the humans were too weak and can't sustain his needs. If the humans were like the mountain giant race, he might have considered setting here for a decade or two, but he knows it was just a pipe dream. After encountering those hob trolls, he was even more sure that humans were in constant danger and very easy to push around, so he had an even worse image of them right now. Nevertheless, this didn't give him the reason to antagonize the knights from Knight Order, since they might bring unnecessary troubles to his door. He still needed to stay for some time in here, so he didn't plan to fall with the strongest force of this kingdom. Unless they're courting death themselves. He looked at Austin and nodded slightly. "No need to be polite. Come in." Jacob brought the guests into the small living room, where a table and 2 chairs were. He took one chair and pointed toward the other. "I don't have any more chairs, since I wasn't expecting other guests." Harland's expression changed and Kai's eyes turned stony as he was about to rebuke him when Austin took the chair and sat down with a smile. "Don't worry, I won't take your precious time. You two wait outside." Austin's words made Kai stand down with resentful eyes, and gave Harland a tremendous surprise since he knew Jacob was just being extremely rude. But Austin didn't react at all, and he started to get suspicious that they both know each other. But when he saw Kai clenching his fist slightly, he thought otherwise. They both left the two alone. Jacob didn't even glance at Kia or Harland all this time, so their departure wasn't anything for him. He asked impassively, "So what brings a knight to my door? If you were just an hour later, I was going to leave for another trip." Austin smiled amiably and replied, "I was here out of curiosity to see what kind of C-rank mercenary has appeared here. As you know, people use the identity loophole all the time, and it's seldom that a C-rank mercenary appeared, especially in such a small town." Jacob coolly replied, "This place suits me for the time being, so I decided to register from here." Austin nodded in understanding and didn't discuss further into it, since everyone has their reasons. His eyes suddenly turned sharp as he said, "I can tell you are extremely strong, far stronger than me. You also look like someone with hidden motives. So, I won't beat around the bush with someone like you. I want to invite you to join the Black Knight Order." Jacob didn't react, but his lip curled slightly. "Black Knight Order? Let me guess, it's some personal army under the crown, and they are free to do whatever they want, but they had to protect the royal family whenever they are in danger. Or, they are some kind of assassination squad or like this. Let me tell you straight, I will not join anything if it's affected my freedom." Austin pursed his lips. You didn't even hear me out and directly rejected me? Don't you want to know what the Black Knight Order is? Jacob shrugged. My answer is the same. I will not join anything if it affects my freedom. Austin sighed. I will still tell you. You can then decide to join or not. Jacob remained silent and let Austin continue. You see, the Black Knight Order is different from the Knight Order because it wasn't made public and only nobles know about it. The Black Knight Order isn't under anyone's command, not even the Crown, but it's under the Nightmare Knight Legion. Nightmare Knight Legion? Jacob's interest was suddenly piqued when he heard this unfamiliar name. Austin nodded. Yes, the Nightmare Knight Legion is like the Start Mercenary Agency, Apothecary Guild, and Gunsmith Guild. You're probably wondering why such an organization isn't famous as the other three, right? Jacob nodded. He had already known about three famous forces that represent and target unique aspects of professions. Austin smiled. Just like the Star Mercenary Agency had the Zodiac Taurus Bank, and the Apothecary Guild and Gunsmith Guild had the Alchemy Guild behind them, the Nightmare Knight Legion also has the Zodiac Warriors Alliance behind them. So, there were some important parts they missed in those books, huh? It seemed this Alchemy Guild and Zodiac Warriors Alliance are on the same level as the Zodiac Taurus Bank. But the Zodiac Taurus Bank seemed more famous and open than the other two, or they simply aren't worried about influence. Jacob's eyes shimmered with uncertainty. Please, continue. Jacob nodded in understanding. Austin smiled meaningfully as he had already guessed Jacob didn't have this kind of information, and he knew he had to convince Jacob with facts if he wanted to persuade him. He said, these three are the three hegemonies in 4 regions and their roots are so deep no one knows where they end, so no race goes against them. As for why I tell you about the other two, it was because it would be simple to understand this way. First, the Alchemy Guild, their strongest strength is their control over life knowledge, the forerunner of life, and unimaginable technology. They had all kinds of knowledge of different professions which greatly affects our life and others, even wars. That's why they were dreaded by everyone, and on one dare to fall out with them. The Apothecary Guild and Gunsmith Guild were just fragments of their knowledge. We humans just weren't interested enough to arouse their further interest. Second, the Zodiac Taurus Bank. I don't have to introduce them since you might have already known. Their strongest strength is wealth and their way to keep increasing it and keeping it safe. The biggest reason for Zodiac Taurus Bank is one of the 3 hegemony, is their way to protect the wealth they controlled, and they had many mysterious ways to hunt you down if you ever try to rob them. That's why everyone trusted them. Even those arrogant apothecaries and gunsmiths, have accounts and safes in the Zodiac Taurus Bank. Lastly, the Zodiac Warriors Alliance. They didn't have the knowledge or technology like the Alchemy Guild, nor did they have the wealth of Zodiac Taurus Bank. But it ranked first between 3 hegemonies. Do you know why? Austin smiled mysteriously, which made Jacob's eyes narrow with prudence. Chapter 70 Black Knight Order. Jacob impassively replied, enlightened me. But the wariness in his eyes increased. He suddenly felt like a frog in the well who only see the world with that narrow viewpoint. Austrian said, Zodiac Warriors Alliance is the strongest because they only had fighters or true warriors in their ranks, and they didn't let just any Tom, Dick and Harry into their ranks, even if it's the Nightmare Knight Legion. They only give access to the Nightmare Knight Legion through a kingdom's army while creating a Black Knight Order within the army. And then to join the Nightmare Knight Legion through the Black Knight Order, you have to be someone below the age of 30 and strength equivalent to a C-rank mercenary. Jacob's eyes shine with understanding. He finally understood why Austin was going to such a great length to tell him all this. It was because of his young appearance. Austin's next words just confirmed his guess. The moment I saw you I can guess you're extremely young, and I don't want you to waste your youth and potential like those fools in the wild and then die. I'm training my foster son to enter the Black Knight Order and he might be able to make it in the upcoming test. But on the other hand, you are completely another story. You are like those youths trained under first-class knights. That's why you'll get into the Black Knight Order and then might have a chance to enter the Nightmare Knight Legion. I won't lie to you about the Nightmare Knight Legion. Only someone with B-rank mercenary strength and age below 40 can join their ranks. In the history of our human race, only 3 humans managed to join them. The current Marshal of the Night Order is also a Nightmare Knight, and he is the strongest person in humanity. That's why everyone is afraid of offending the Knights. Austin's voice was filled with longing and worshipped in the end. But there was also bitterness since he knew he had little potential. He wasn't even qualified to enter the Black Knight Order, and that was why he trained Kai to fulfill the biggest regret of his life. However, Jacob wasn't moved by Austin's speech in the least bit, and all his focus was on the information about the Zodiac Warriors Alliance. I have to be careful of this alliance. Since they are so strict with their selection process, then they are really not to trifle with. Who knows what kind of existences are within their ranks to have them become the strongest force. He looked at Austin, who was still lamenting about his past. He said, "You say they didn't have anything the other 2 powers have, then what do they have to offer?" Austin was surprised by Jacob's uninterested expression and thought it was his fault for getting off rails. He didn't tell Jacob about the true strength of the alliance and directly told him about the joining process. He said, "I'm sorry I got slightly emotional. So, as I said, they had fighters. But what drew those fighters and made them strive to join the alliance is not wealth or any technology, but the fighter manuals in their possessions. Don't look down on these fighter manuals, although there isn't much information about them in Night Order. But according to some senior knights, those fighter manuals have the ability to increase your fighting potential and prowess." Just that. Jacob felt his expectations got burned all of a sudden. But when he thought from the perspective of someone like Austin, he thought it made sense that all those fighting maniacs would choose to join the alliance since money and knowledge can come with power as well. Furthermore, he knew there might be some important information being held back, and someone like Austin or the ordinary knight from Night Order won't know the complete mystery of these fighter manuals. Nevertheless, he was still half-hearted because he had a manual of his own that can increase his strength to an unknown height, so the allure of this alliance was almost like dry meat to him. As long as he wasn't desperate, he won't eat it no matter what. But he can't tell this Austin, since he told him this information which gave him more prospects about this world. He won't be ruthless to the old knight. He said as he nodded, "So, how can I join this Black Knight Order?" Austin smiled broadly as if he had already expected it. "You just have to head toward the Royal City and pass the examination of Black Knight Academy in 6 months. Jacob nodded, but he suddenly sensed something and asked, "I think you're missing something? I heard you guys hate the mercenary agency, but why did you promote the Black Knight Order?" Austin's expression changed ever so slightly, but Jacob noticed it and he knew he had hit a bull's eye. Austin sighed. "You're just too sharp for your own good. But since you have noticed it, I'll tell you which you're supposed to know after the test. This is also good since you won't think I trick you. The thing is, the Black Knight Academy accept anyone under the age of 30 as long as they pass the strength and comprehension test. But they only train them until they reach the age of 39. No matter at what age you joined, you'll be kicked out at the age of 39. As to the reason for this rule, it's because, during your stay in the academy, you have to become a true Black Knight, which is equivalent to a B-rank mercenary. If you succeed, you'll get a chance to join the Nightmare Knight Legion Academy in Rare Province as long as you pass the entrance test. But if you failed... He deeply looked at Jacob's cold eyes and sighed. "If you failed, you have to join the Black Knight Order Academy as a teacher and serve your kingdom for your entire life. It's the rule of every kingdom with Black Knight Academy. This is the steep price to pay for who wants to join the Nightmare Knight Legion. Since they had already spent resources on you and let you practice in the fighter manuals, they won't leave you free. But don't worry." Jacob cut Austin short with his icy voice. "I understand. I'll consider it. You may leave now." Chapter 71 Visitors Again. Austin left Jacob's house with a slightly regretful expression. He looked at Jacob's stoic face and sincerely said, "Please consider it carefully. I'll be staying here for some days. If you have any questions, you can find me in the Lord's Manor any time." Jacob merely nodded before he closed the door. Kai couldn't help but utter in an unhappy tone, "How rude. Teacher, why did you give him so much face while he doesn't put you in his eye?" Austin walked toward the exit and said faintly, He's worthy of this respect. If he can give up his pride this time, I think you two might meet soon in the examination. Kai's expression changed as he questioned. Don't tell me. Yes, I invited him. But he's too sharp for his own good. Let's see what happened. I tried my best in the end. Austin sighed and didn't continue the topic anymore. Kai also remained silent, but deep within his eyes, a killing intent flashed. Harland had no idea what they were talking about, but he knew he won't be able to present the gifts after he saw Jacob closing the door at Austin. Jacob returned after making sure those three left the vicinity of his house. He couldn't help but sneered. That old goat wanted to trick me into taking this Black Knight Academy's test, and then I would be forever tied by the Humane Kingdom if I can't achieve a B rank or pass the test in the rare region. I bet that Marshall fellow is at the bottom of this organization and probably exhausted his talent and sent back to promote the organization. Who wouldn't want to be like him if they were normal? But that Marshall is just a pretty display here in the uncommon region, while he didn't mean shit in the rare region. Heh, trying to play with this old man? You're a life early, Humph. Jacob was extremely displeased in the end. The slightly good feeling he had toward Austin completely vanished. He wasn't a fool, and he knew these things very well. An organization that allowed others to take from it will always take back and much more than the others took from it. This was like a slave contract. Once you sign, no matter what you do in your life, you can never escape from it. The others will find a way to exploit it, and you will fall deeper and deeper into that endless hole until you died. Jacob was just too familiar with this process. This Zodiac Warrior Alliance was doing just that. Although they gave the methods to become strong, they took away your freedom. Furthermore, their way of doing it was quite meticulous because they won't directly enslave anyone to them, but instead they let them serve in their homes, which no one felt uncomfortable with or thought of rebelling. The nations would also be pleased with this setting because they were getting the trained soldiers by the Zodiac Warrior Alliance, and they would even promote it with everything they had. However, Jacob knew if this alliance ever felt threatened by a big enemy, these prideful discarded fools would be the first ones to summon back and become the cannon folds. At that time, those nations won't have the guts to reject them, nor those fools will dare to raise any objection since in their mind they were being rewarded by summoning back. Heh. They're using the way of creating longing and then giving back with more longing. Jacob smiled disdainfully. Even if he was desperate enough to join such an organization in the future, he would make sure to leave a way out. Because he didn't want to have such a big enemy on his tail unless he didn't have reason to. And besides, he knew eventually he won't be afraid of these hegemonies. But as long as he can remain neutral, he doesn't take the path of war and avoid it, if he could. That was why he asked Austin to leave rudely, since it won't create much hope in the old man's mind, nor would he feel resentful toward Jacob because he knew the pros and cons himself. Throwing the matter with Austin's back of his head, he started the last distillation process again. It was already late at night when Jacob was done with brewing and injecting. He didn't fatigue at all, but he felt the hunger that was increasing with each injection, and he was planning to head to the wilderness again as soon as he got the Titan iron swords. But the peace didn't last long, as he welcomed another visitor the next morning. This time, there were two, and Jacob was even slightly familiar with one of them. It was none other than the vice leader of the Raintown Mercenary Agency, Ralph. With Ralph was another middle-aged man with short pepper salt hair, average height, and tone build. The man introduces himself with a polite smile. I'm the leader of Star Mercenary Agency in Raintown, Warren. However, to both men's surprise, Jacob didn't even invite them in and asked in a vexed tone, "What do you both want? I'm telling you, I won't join anyone, no matter what you offer me." Warren glanced at Ralph with a questionable gaze, and Ralph shrugged. He meant he had no idea why this fellow was like this. Although Ralph had a brief encounter with Jacob, he still didn't know his personality. He had already invited Jacob to meet with Warren, but he never appeared and instead vanished for over a month. It was yesterday they received news of his return and thought he would visit them since they consider it beneath them to visit Jacob with their status. But when they heard, Austin had paid Jacob's a visit with a man's own mouth before coming to them, they suddenly felt something was amiss and came here first thing in the morning. But Jacob was just cold and without any manner. He didn't give them any face at all, despite their introduction. This made them slightly unhappy, especially Warren, who had a bad temper. Chapter 72: Scaring Away Visitors. Despite his displeasure, Warren didn't rebuke and pull a smile and said, "I learn you joined when I was out of town, which was quite unfortunate. However, Vice Leader Ralph invited you for a visit, but you never came. So, I came personally to satisfy my curiosity." Jacob impassively replied, "Are you satisfied now?" Ralph's expression turned unkind at this moment as he sternly said, "Kid, don't push your luck anymore. We are here with good intent." Before he could finish his word, a blur flashed before Ralph's eyes, and the next moment he suddenly felt the powerful claw on his mouth which was clenching his entire jaw, almost to the point of breaking it. Ralph tried to struggle, but no matter what he couldn't get free from Jacob's claw on his mouth. Fear creeped out in his eyes. More. Warren's heart palpitated as he looked at Jacob, who had a cold smirk on his face while he held Ralph like he was a helpless rabbit. He didn't even see when Jacob moved, and he finally understood they were barking up the wrong tree this time. Truth be told, these two were like gangsters of this town. They collect monthly fee from every mercenary who stayed in the Rain Town and the Lord's Mansion. They both used their positions to take advantage of the powerless, since they knew as long as they won't offend anyone with a higher status, they won't get in trouble. The agency would protect them from minor charters like the Town Lord as long as won't go too far. Even Jonty had to pay them if he wanted to stay here. They have been doing this for years now, and never suffer any backlash. Well, until today. When they found out Austin has met with Jacob, they thought he was moving away from here and wanted to test the water. If it was true, they won't interfere or show their true colors, but if it was just their speculation, then they would demand the monthly fee from him. However, they never thought Jacob was strong to the point that he could make Ralph immobilized like a chicken. Now, Warren perspired as he looked at Ralph, who was struggling while glancing at him with his bloodshot eyes, asking for help. Jacob coolly looked at Warren and coldly uttered, "Listen carefully. I'm saying it one last time. If you two eyesores appeared anywhere near my site, I'll skin you alive right in the middle of the town. Is that clear?" Warren couldn't help but took a step back as his back was filled with cold sweat and eyes with fear. He replied in a hoarse voice, We understand." Jacob nodded in satisfaction, as he waved his other hand and tossed Ralph like a rag doll. Warren's eyes nearly popped up from their place when he saw Raft was literally flying out of the fence. Warren suddenly felt like slapping Ralph silly since he didn't even recognize this monster in human skin and nearly bring them to the death door. Jacob looked at Warren, which made him flattered. "Fuck off and announce this as well. If anyone had some business with me, they can send written letters. If they dare to knock on my door and disturb me anymore." He smiled viciously. "Here, I'll find you." Warren hurriedly nodded before he fled without caring about Ralph, who lay in the middle of the road, listlessly. Jacob closed the door again and shook his head in frustration. This should put an end to those scheming idiots' visits. Afterward, no more visitors appeared, which made Jacob content mentally, yet he was restless physically because of that creeping hunger. He had already eaten everything in the house, but he just couldn't get satisfied. This made him even more eager to start this hunting season because he could get uncommon animals' meat in the wild, which was far more nutritious than these common animals. Even if he failed in finding the tiger bull, he can still slowly quench that hunger with uncommon animals out there. When the first ray of light shone on the Rain Town, Jacob exited his house and directly headed toward the smithery. Isaac was waiting for Jacob when he appeared and handed him two sheathed, curved, short swords. Jacob grabbed those dark hilts and drew those 14-inch swords, and thin dark blades appeared giving of cold dark sheen. He looked at Isaac and nodded. "Thanks, they should be enough for now." Isaac smiled in satisfaction. Those short swords should be able to cut rocks like butter, without leaving a scratch on the blades. " I should be the one thanking you for giving me the chance to work with Titian iron." Jacob replied as he attached those scabbards to his belt. "I might be gone for a while now if I didn't find what I'm looking for, so keep my things safe." Isaac nodded and assured, "Don't worry, I had a safe place." Jacob replied as he attached those scabbards to his belt. "I might be gone for a while now if I didn't find what I'm looking for, so keep my things safe." Isaac nodded and assured, "Don't worry, I had a safe place." Jacob merely gnawed and left. He headed straight toward the town gate and left toward the direction where the tiger bull left some trails when it ran away. Jacob was pretty sure that bull wasn't something that will remain low-key, especially not in this place where it was the strongest. Most importantly, Jacob didn't want someone else to spot it and alert some annoying people, or worst, that hidden force might have already been looking for it after they found out about the incident with the tiger bull delivery. It was pretty easy to guess since the tiger bull was supposed to be appeared in the Lionheart City by now, but it doesn't, so someone might investigate the reason behind it. Nevertheless, if they came in his way to get that bull, they will be courting death. On the eastern part of rainy mountain ranges, a man with deep wounds on his face and chest was running madly toward the exit of the valley with an aghast face. His mind was filled with deep dismay and fear as he ran. How could such a creature have appeared in this region? My entire crew was wiped out, and if I hadn't escaped in time, I would have been like them as well. Only B-rank mercenaries might deal with it. But that might be too late since it's heading toward the humane kingdom. I have to hurry. Chapter 73, Finding the Bull. Jacob has been on the bull hunt for over 2 weeks now, but he had no luck. However, it doesn't mean he hasn't hunted any prey in these 14 days. He had already collected 2 uncommon hearts and eaten many uncommon animals of the same species. But he could feel the progress was quite slow, and he probably reached 15% compatibility with his heart yet. Nevertheless, his hunger wasn't increasing, so this was a plus, and he mused this way he might reach a 100% compatible rate with his heart in 3 or 4 months. 3 more days pass and Jacob was going deeper within the rainy mountains where uncommon animals were abundant. But he still has found no trace of that bull, or they were all washed away because of the rain. But it matters not to him as he continues forward. However, on this particular day, Jacob's ears perked when he noticed footsteps that didn't belong to animals, and he could tell they were coming from someone on 2 feet. He quickly jumped on a tree and hid. Thereupon, a man appeared in an extremely sorry state. Jacob noticed the wood on his left shoulder, which was like he was stabled by a thick drill. The bull horns. He quickly thought of those massive bull horns and he felt excited. However, before he could act, his expression changed slightly and he remained static in his position. Thereupon, 3 cloaked figures appeared before that wounded man. They were extremely quick. Even Jacob only noticed them when they were 10 meters away from this place. That wounded man was startled, but when that man saw they were not wild animals, he nearly cried in joy and relief. The next moment, his eyes rolled upward as he lost consciousness. One of the cloaked figures spoke. It seemed he's extremely exhausted, so the moment he saw us that exhaustion washed over him, and now we can't question him. Another feminine voice rang. Heh, we don't need him anyway, right, Captain? The cloaked figure, who was 2 meters tall, spoke in a deep voice. No, we need to know how that bull escaped, or this person was with the group who interfere with the cargo and then failed to keep it. Most importantly, we need to know if someone has the letter. Awake him. The female nodded. I was waiting for you to say it. There was a hint of wicked elation in her voice. Suddenly, a handgun appeared in her hand. She pointed it toward the unconscious man's crotch and pulled the trigger. Bang! Just as the gunshot voice rang, the unconscious man's eyes sprang open, filled with extreme agony as his screams filled the area. The captain crouched in front of that man's agonized face and coldly said, If you want the pain to go away, tell me, where do you get that wound? The man seemed to not hear him at all. The other man said at this moment, He's in hyperbolic shock. I don't think he can talk. The captain waited for a moment before his hand suddenly blurred and he stood up. But the man has stopped screaming, and there was a finger hole in the man's forehead right now. A drop of blood fell on the ground from that cloaked figure. How fast? The woman seemed to click her tongue in wonder as she admired that clean kill. The captain said, It seemed we won't be able to know for now what happened. At least our dinner is arranged. Hee. It's been a long time since I eat the human flesh. The female spoke with ecstasy and she took out a knife. Jacob saw all that inhuman scene from the tree not far away. But he remained stoic without feeling anything, and all this focus was on those 3. That captain fellow is probably a B rank or somewhere close to it. Their skin color is also like those hob trolls I killed, which means they are from the same organization and also searching for the tiger bull. And they had some means to track it down. I should follow them, Jacob mused. Those 3 cloaked figures fed on that dead human, and then they moved. But they had no idea Jacob was following them from a distance. Jacob also saw a device like a mobile phone, and a red blinking could be seen on it and an arrow. So, they put a tracker inside that bull's body? It seemed I have to treat this world like my own. They had everything. It's just that humans don't, so I can't keep seeing everything from their perspective anymore. Well, it's also a good thing that I ran away, or they might have caught me off guard when I was in my vulnerable state. But now, heh. Jacob coldly smiled. Jacob followed that group for 3 days. He found out they won't talk with each other much and only used signals sometime or small commands. They were extremely careful to not reveal anything about their background. Moo. They all heard this ghastly roar at this moment, and everything thought of the same thing. Tiger bull. It was only 50 meters away from their current location. The captain signaled them with a hand, and those 2 quickly go in a different direction and moved in. Jacob was already hiding within the trees, with no intention of joining them. He wanted to see their strength, even though he had some idea where they stand. But he was still going to enjoy the show. Those 3 slowly moved in with silent steps and halted. Just 10 meters away from their position lay a crimson bull with tiger-like white straps around its body and a pair of crimson bull horns. That tiger bull was munching on a big leopard, which he probably just slaughtered. The captain again signaled, and the other 2 took out their firearms. He held a silver axe in his one hand and an action pump in the other. He suddenly charged at full speed as he roared. Attack! Chapter 74 Killer Skull Society 1. Attack! The tiger bull instantly notices the attackers and stands straight while lower his head. It was taking a charging stance to black the attacker with an axe and shotgun. However, before the bull could charge, gunshots rang from a distance and one of them pierced into its left eye. Moo! It roared in frenzy and went berserk as it completely forgot about any pain and madly charged toward the attacker in sight. The attack with an axe was ready for this, and he first took a shot at the bull's right eye. Boom! The gauge was packed with special types of sharp nails, and the moment it burst, the bull's head was filled with small holes as blood gushed out. However, it didn't slow it down in the least bit, and it roared more violently as it charged. The cloaked man seemed to expect this, and when the bull was only a meter away from him, he suddenly launched himself in the air. The bull then naturally lost its target, but the man was now in the air right above the bullhorns. Within an instant, that man let go of his shotgun and grabbed one of the bullhorns, and somersaulted on the bull's back. The bull naturally wasn't happy about it and started to jump around to throw its attacker off. However, that man's grip was solid, and he didn't lose his balance. The very next moment thereafter, he lifted his axe and swung it with full force, and it landed right in the middle of the bull's head. Yet, it only managed to cut through the skin and little muscles. Its skull was still undamaged. That's why it's so hard to deal with, the man thought with some frustration. But he didn't stop swinging and kept hitting the skull until it was finally broken. The bull let loose one last eerily cry before it fell on the ground with a big thump, raising a dust cloud. The other 2 appeared from the woods at this time. It was really intense, far better than anal. The woman spoke hysterically. Tisk, nasty woman. The second one clicked his tough as he kept his distance and looked at the man with a bloody axe in his hand. So, that's how you kill a tiger bull, huh? His voice was filled with admiration. Heh, it's the only weak place it had. If you go for its body or neck even, then you're only wasting your energy and... Swish. However, before he could finish his sentence, a dark blur flashed past his neck, like a gust of cold yet sharp wind. The other 2 only noticed when the body and head separated and start falling. But in this small window, another gust of sharp wind blew past that woman. Now, only the last person remains, and he only reacts when he heard his comrades' heads falling to the ground. Ah! He screams historically and starts pulling the trigger of his gun madly, as he shot in all directions without aiming. Even after emptying it, he was still clicking the trigger while spinning like a lunatic. In the end, he exhausted himself and fell on his butt, groaning and panting. "Hair, already done?" This icy voice was like a lightning bolt that jolted that fellow. Please, I don't want to die. I'll give you everything. Just please let me go. I won't tell anyone." He starts prostrating himself while crying. The cloak on his face also fell at this moment. It was an ugly, skinny hob troll. Jacob appeared in front of the crying fellow with a cold smirk on his face. He had long decided to spear this fellow because he wanted information. He had noticed while following these three that this hob troll never acts unless it was necessary, and avoided a dangerous situation while shielding himself with the other two. They were both fearless, and that woman was straight crazy. Moreover, this fellow seemed to know about medicine. So, Jacob concluded that this fellow was afraid of death, and he was perfect to extract information from. He wanted to know just what kind of organization was behind them and why they were looking for this bull. It wasn't just a simple reason to recover that letter or kill it. It was more to their advantage if they simply let it roam freely in human towns. There was more than to meet the eye, and he wanted to know because he had this strange feeling that it wasn't over yet. All in all, Jacob wanted to know if they had a way to link all this back to him or not. "All right, I'll let you run. But you have to answer my question first," Jacob coolly stated. The hob troll finally looked up with his snort-filled face. His eyes widened with disbelief when he saw this was a human. But he quickly nodded his head. His life was more important than some petty enmity between their predecessors. "Who are you, and why are you here?" asked Jacob. "I'm Skull No. D198938833 from Killer Skull Society. As for why we were here, only he knows." Skull No. D198938833 pointed toward the beheaded man. However, a dark blur brushed past Skull No. D198938833's arm, and the next moment it dropped separately from his elbow. "Ah!" He reacts a moment later and shrieks like a dying pig the next moment. Jacob coldly looked at him. "Did I forget to tell you? My bad then. Listen, you fuckface. Every time you lie I'll cut a part of our body, and after you left with no part, I'll skin you alive, and trust me, I won't let you die." Skull No. D198938833 finally spills the beans. We were only told to kill the tiger bull and investigate the whereabouts of a missing letter. I swear, he only tells us this much. Our ranks were lower than his, and he knew more details than us. Please, just let me go. Intriguing. Jacob pulls a spooky smile at this moment. Something tells me you have some idea why he was here. So, are you going to tell me nicely or not? Chapter 75 Killer Skull Society 2. Skull No. D198938833 felt like he was stared at by a demon and horridly speak. I think he was here for the tracker in that bull's body because it can tell us locations where it has been for the past 3 months. And no, I'm sure of it because if they wanted to track the letter, they would retract the footsteps of the tiger bull to see where all had happened and find clues about it. Furthermore, I think that guy was after the Titan iron cage as well because it is worth a small fortune. Please, I know nothing else. Jacob deeply looked at the crying Skull No. D198938833 with squinted eyes. The tracking device can be traced back to the bull's location? If that's the case, they might really be here for that letter. But I still can't reach any conclusion right now, he said. Tell me about this Killer Skull Society. Skull No. D198938833 finally felt some relief when Jacob stopped questioning about the mission. He said, "It's a dark organization without any ties with any race or region. Even if they had, with our ranking I simply didn't have the right to know. But one thing is for certain, they had ample resources. They approached me on their own accord with an invitation, and if I want to join them, then I have to complete the assignment in that invitation to prove my loyalty and resolve. Then, if they are satisfied with my response, they sent another invitation with my special ID number. Any future contacts were done with the same method to ensure their secrecy. The current mission was the same, but this was my first time attending a team mission and meeting with others members of the society as well. Jacob couldn't help but though with a hint of astonishment in his eyes. They're like the sleeper cells of a terrorist organization, huh? What's the purpose of this Killer Skull Society and why do they approach you? He questioned. Their dictum is they are changing the world for the better and seeking a justifiable position for us powerless. I was just a random cowardly nobody who was always bullied by the rich, and that's why I agree with their viewpoint and joined their ranks. They not only give me a purpose but also wealth and help me see the hope. Nevertheless, I'm not frantic enough to die for this cause as well. I'll leave to the common region and you won't see me ever again. Skull no. D198938833 plead. Jacob's lips curled upward. Man, a terrorist society, really? What about the ranks? Your name is your ID, right? They had the same rank as Mercenary Agency A, B, C, D, E, F, but each rank had a skull word attached to it. But we can't move up ranks like the mercenaries. We have to complete missions to move on the ladder. As for my name, from the moment we join the society, our names become our ID numbers. They encourage us to state our ID numbers instead of our names to show just how many skulls we have after us. Furthermore, the lesser the number the older and stronger the skull is. I only know this much about it. Interesting. So, you have no loyalty toward your kind anymore? If they asked you to cause a massacre in your kingdom, will you do it? Jacob looked at him nonchalantly. As long as it won't endanger my life, I will. In fact, any member could do the same. They probably selected us because we have no belonging to the community. However, they never gave me such assignments to harm my kind. He answered. Last question. Can you read the content of this letter? Jacob put his hand in his side pocket and took out the same encrypted letter he looted from the 3 hob trolls. Skull no. D198938833 eyes widen when he saw the letter in Jacob's hand and he looked at him in shock. So, you were the one who intercepted the cargo? Jacob shrugged his shoulders and coolly reply. I was just in the area and I even asked those 3 to hand over that tiger bull nicely. But they disagree and now you can imagine after what happened then since I'm standing here while they're not. Skull no. D198938833 expression turned even more grim as he looked at the nonchalant human. So the bull escaped from him and he was also searching for it and we happened to bump into him? He took a deep breath and said, This is my first time seeing those symbols. I never received that kind of letter. But whoever this letter was meant for, they're at the very high ranking of the society, and they might have required this letter since they send us here to search for it. Jacob sneered. Can't they just send another one? Why this bravado? This I don't know, but if this letter was from the higher region, then I'm afraid the upper echelon in the uncommon region won't dare to report this blunder unless they're certain they can't handle the situation themselves. They might have been afraid of the punishment. Skull no. D198938833 truthfully told. Jacob thought a moment and nodded. He also thought the same. Especially after concluding that this Killer Skull Society was like a terrorist organization, and a blunder in such an organization was unacceptable. This means they'll try every means to get their hands on this letter and continue to investigate unless they hit a stone wall. Well, as long as they didn't have any rank here, they would only deliver me more gifts and make my life easier. He suddenly smiled deviously. Thank you for your information. You can scram now. Jacob glanced at Skull no. D198938833 and gave him the go signal. Skull no. D198938833 had already stopped the bleeding from his severed arm and he was waiting for these exact words. He spun around the RAN at full speed. Boom! A gunshot ran and the next moment, Skull no. D198938833's skull was blown open. Jacob scoffed disdainfully as stored his revolver away. I only say I let you run, not let you go free. Chapter 76 A Feast. Far away from the rainy mountain range, inside a bright room, a burly hob troll was reading some documents with a serious expression on his face. Tuk. Suddenly, he heard noises from the window in on his rear. He turned around and saw a small blue bird gnawing on the glass window with its small beak. He stood up from his chair and moved toward the closed window, and he opened it without any hesitation. The little bird flew inside and sat on his shoulder. A small smile appeared on this hob troll's ugly face as brushed his finger on the little bird's head. However, the next moment, his eyes turned icy, and he suddenly formed a pincer with his thumb and finger and instantly broke the bird's neck, killing it in an instant. Forgive me, little one. A trace of tear appeared in his eyes as he cradled the dead bird in his hand as if he was in extreme pain. The next moment, he took out a knife from a drawer of his table and cut open the bird's belly, and startling, a small tub appeared. The hob troll took out the small tube before it picked up the bloody bird again and mumbled, "You'll live forever within me," and then gobbled it whole. He then opened the tube, and a small chit appeared. There was writing on it. Skull no. C8719899650 has been crushed. Skull no. B3490323223 move out. Assignment details and materials have been delivered into the bank locker. The hob troll frowned, seeing the content before he swallowed the chit as well. No one is allowed to hinder our noble cause. With that, he opened the door and left. After killing the 3 hob troll, Jacob finally turned his attention toward the big prize, which was naturally the tiger bull. However, he tried to pierce open its stomach. He soon found out why this bull's skin was compatible with iron. He had to use his full strength to cut it open, and without the Titan iron blade, he was afraid no normal blade could pierce through this bull's skin. Nevertheless, he just had to work extra hard to guts this bull, and he considered it an exercise for himself. After his heart's new evolution, he had yet to feel fatigued. Only hunger was his biggest enemy. But it still took 3 hours to completely remove the skin and inners. He had already collected the loot from his newly killed hob trolls. He got 6 handguns, 2 shotguns, and 1 axe, which was clearly made of special material as well. But Jacob tried to swing it on his Titian blades and it didn't manage to leave a scratch, which means it was far inferior. A total of 2,674 bullets for all the firearms and mercenary IDs from the Earthen Kingdom. 3 long knives and 12 small daggers from that crazy hob troll woman, 520 bronze coins, 3,904 silver coins, and 1,726 gold coins. Lastly, the tracking device that was still working and showing the dead tiger bull. Jacob had found no tracker inside the bull's body, even after looking for it, which could only mean it was inside its head, which was still untouched by him. This should come in handy. He moved toward the bull's head, which was already half opened. He then put his inside its gory skull and started to search around. Here it is. He finally found a small gemstone that was planted right on its forehead by someone. This also explains why they needed to kill it. But it also made it clear that whoever put this inside this bull's head wasn't someone normal. After putting the tracker and tracking device away inside his storage, he looked around, and it was a huge mess. Blood and gore were all over the area and the potent smell. I can't cook it here. Jacob shook his head and picked the huge iron bull, which was now a meat slab. He also took his skin and he was planning to make clothes out of it because of its defense. As for the others, he left them for the animals to clean them. He had already taken what needed. After moving a few miles away from the kill zone, he started to make his camp, and the first thing he did was light a huge fire and skewered the entire bull. Afterward, he set a nice camp before starting to tend the meat with all kinds of spices he had stored before coming here. But regretfully, they weren't enough for such a huge bull. The bull was 3 meters in size, and one could imagine just how difficult it was to cook it whole, but Jacob still take it upon himself. He knew he can consume it whole, and he was planning to do just that before returning. After 12 hours of waiting, the tiger bull was ready to eat, and Jacob didn't stand on ceremony and turned an entire leg piece and start to eat like a barbarian. The sky was already filled with rain clouds, and Jacob didn't want the meat to go bad, especially not this quality. As he ate the delicious meat, he felt the hot wave of energy spreading all over his body as his heart beat like crazy. He could literally feel meat being digested within seconds as it reached his stomach, which made him eat even faster than he could feel his body started to get strong. It took him 3 hours to consume the entire bull and bone marrow even. Now he felt full of energy and his hunger was no longer apparent. But the greatest change was Jacob was now bulky, like Olympia, which made him frown to no end. He didn't like this kind of physique because it restrained his movement, despite giving him a wide area of motion and strength. Then he decided with a dangerous glint in his eyes, I'm going to compress my muscles, and the best way is to practice that suicidal martial art that lunatic gave me. I never thought anyone is capable of learning it, but now I'm required such a martial art. Chapter 77, An Old Deal. So, Mr. Jacob, we have finalized our deal with your company. A tall, handsome man held a champagne glass as he purposed a toast to old Jacob, who seemed to be in his late 50s. Old Jacob looked outside the glass wall, as he can see the entire city from this floor, which was 1,000 meters from the ground. His eyes were calm and uninterested in anything as he looked at the city from the very top. It was like he had lost his interest in the entire world itself. Mr. Jacob? The tall man called again. Jacob finally looked at the man with a faint smile and nodded. Yeah, whatever. But I still don't understand why you purpose a personal meeting while my sons can do the same. You should know I'm about to retire, and my sons will inherit my entire legacy. A wily glint flashed past the man's blue eyes as he said, I know, and I'm very grateful that you agree to this meeting. I'm an admirer of yours, Mr. Jacob. You have changed the entire weapon industry in 20 years. Jacob didn't even feel anything as he said, I heard this thing for a long time. So? His eyes suddenly turned sharp as knives. Why did you want to meet me? You even gave my son $1 billion just to arrange this meeting. If not for your relationship with that greedy brat, trust me, I'll blow this entire city from the face of the earth, and no one will even ask why I did it. So, last chance, why do you want to meet me before I'm out of here? The man's eyes were filled with shock now, as he looked at the old man who was still as sturdy as a tower, and his muscular build clearly wasn't from just exercise. All right, since you already know about my deal with Ryan, I'll come straight to the point. Everyone with my status knows you only show just a fraction of your research to the world and you have far more to offer, but for some reason, you held back on us. Jacob suddenly shook his head and cut the man's speech. He said, I've seen countless people like you who sound like they wanted to change the world for the better, but in the end, we all know you're just a power-hungry businessman who wanted to control the world. I'm not wasting my time with you anymore. Finished, he starts walking toward the door. The man suddenly panicked and blurted, Please wait, I heard your wife has terminal cancer and you've been searching for a cure or anything that can prolong her life. I can help you with that. Jacob's footsteps come to an abrupt halt and he finally turns around. There were ripples in his eyes, which were as cold as stone just a few moments before. What kind of help? He asked. The man sighed in relief. My relationship with Ryan is quite good. He told me about how you are searching for anything that can prolong life or get rid of that terminal cancer. I'm not threatening you or using this as leverage to demand things from you. I just want to trade with you. Anything that is not released to the public will be enough, and I even give Ryan half of the profits from this technology. We can sign a contract if you like. He quickly guaranteed Jacob. He knew threatening this old man was like playing with an atomic bomb naked. Jacob deeply looked at the youthful man and said, So, that little bastard is with you in this, huh? The man wanted to say something, but Jacob wasn't done. Fine, you win, but I'm warning you, the moment this thing comes out in this world, no one will be safe anymore. No bulletproof glass or bomb-proof technology will be able to stop this thing. So, I'm asking you again, do you really want this? People will be able to kill even you while you're drinking here from a city away. Think about it carefully, or I can offer you billions for your information and 2% shares of my company. What do you think? Jacob offered. However, greed shone in that man's eyes, and he answered without even thinking, as if he didn't listen to Jacob's warning at all. I want it. Wealth means nothing when you can leave your name in history, he said with full of confidence. You're a lunatic. But since you wanted to go down in history, I'll give you the quantum rifle technology. Jacob merely chuckled with a dark glint in his eyes. You dare to use your mother to trap me? I'll make sure you'll regret it. Jacob's eyes turned freezing. Quantum rifle technology. The man mumbled with ecstasy and disbelief. He knew what quantum theory was, and it seemed Jacob has some kind of phenomenal breakthrough which was never revealed to the world. Now, he can take credit for it and become the richest man on this planet, even surpassing the current richest man who was standing right in front of him. Swaying that greedy prick was worth it, he thought with ecstasy. He didn't waste more time in case Jacob changed his mind, and quickly opened a secret safe and took out some papers and a tattered cloth which looked extremely ancient. Furthermore, he placed the papers on the table, which was the contract that stated Jacob would give this aforementioned technology to his company and won't reveal it to another company, nor can he disclose it was invented by him. Half of the profits would be given to Jacob's second son, Ryan, as well, which was the deal between them. But if Jacob played them after the deal was finalized, he will lose half of his fortune. Jacob didn't read nor did he sign it and looked at the man. Tell me the information. If it is worth the quantum rifle technology, I'll sign it. The man didn't delay and lay the tattered ancient map on the table. This is the ancient map passed down to in our family. This led to an old shrine. I have already extracted the contents of this place and found an ancient book. After deciphering it, we found this was an ancient exercise, a martial art that can not only give 50 years of extra life if practiced successfully, its practitioner would never fall ill. He told. Jacob looked at him like he was looking at a clown. And I'm supposed to believe that fantasy shit? Even if that's true, do you think my woman had time to practice this shit at this age? Are you fucking with me? He abruptly stood up in fury. The man seemed to predict it and said, I know it sounds absurd, but do you know my age? Jacob's eyes suddenly widened slightly as he looked at the youthful appearance of this man. Did you practice it? The man smiled mysteriously. He took out a folder and placed it in front of Jacob. Jacob opened it and saw pictures with dates, and they were clearly quite old, and these kinds of cameras weren't used in this modern age. Jacob saw every photo was from this man in front of him. If you think they are forged, you can have someone check them. I'm currently 59 years old, the same age as you or might be older. As you can see, I found this technique in my youth and practiced it ever since, and I maintained my youthful appearance. It's just a pity I can't cultivate it on the second level because that is just impossible. But if you or your wife can practice this technique for 5 years, I'm sure you buy her more time and yourself included. The man assured with confidence. Jacob's heart was now beating quickly as he looked at those pictures. Even he could tell they weren't forged, and the man in front of him was the same person in the pictures. But he still has his doubts. If you can give me the real ancient book to examine, I'll sign this contract. As you know, I'm a man of my word, or you can come to my research facility if you don't trust me. Jacob said. He was already half convinced, and this was the first time he saw hope in this, so he didn't want to let this chance go. The man smiled. You can have the original book. My family had a copy. I know you'll make the right choice, Mr. Jacob, and if you want, we can. Jacob stood up. No, this is the first and last deal between you and me. Unless you can offer me immortality itself, don't try to play any tricks. The man sighed regretfully. Can you tell me why you didn't want your research to change the world? Jacob smiled skeptically. Why didn't you want to share this technique with the world, then? The man chuckled. We are both the same in the end. Jacob shook his head. You are a blind lunatic, while I'm long past this stage. Chapter 78 Art of Nature. Water Meditation. Jacob couldn't help but felt nostalgic when he remembered that meeting decades ago and smiled lightly. In the end, it still took them 30 years to create one quantum rifle, while I was completely obsessed with finding how to increase my life and grasping every straw I can. The art of nature I got from that lunatic was really authentic and might be the biggest reason I lived that long. That ancient book helped Hope live another 20 years as well. But it was just too difficult to progress any higher because we start practicing it too late in our life. If we have got it in our youthful years. Jacob couldn't help but sigh sadly, but soon he locked those sad memories deep in his mind again. Only the memories of the ancient book were left in his mind, and he completely concentrated on it. The art of nature, the ancient exercise that can help humans to tap into their secret potential. It can increase the lifespan, but it was also deadly if someone makes mistakes. It can have an opposite effect as well. That's why even that lunatic didn't dare to practice too deep into this technique. Even I, at that time, it seemed impossible to practice and thought it was probably just a legend. But now. Jacob pulled a sharp smile on his face as he left the place to find a water source. The Art of Nature was the name of that ancient book he once traded for one of his secret technology, as well as to teach those greedy businessmen a lesson that sometimes they should leave some things to remain hidden for the greater good. Especially his second son, Ryan, who was the greediest one, and was after Jacob's hidden research all his life. In the end, he was content with the quantum sniper technology because he thought it was the only technology Jacob had hidden, since they didn't even dare to imagine that he could have hidden more superior technology. But no one knows just how much hid in Jacob's mind except Jacob himself. He had destroyed all this research so it would never see the light of the day after he became obsessed with increasing his lifespan. And it all started after his wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. It was at that time that he realized that he cared about more things than his research on weapons. Anyhow, The Art of Nature was a book that was discovered from an ancient shrine deeply hidden in the ground, and the book wasn't erosion even after thousands of years. Jacob found every detail before he dared to practice this method in this book. He even had someone else first practice it, just to be sure. In the end, the book was authentic and really work. But the thing was, a human can only practice the small part of the first exercise, and it had 5 levels in total. Furthermore, there weren't any details about what these levels will do to the human body once they exercise in them. In the end, Jacob only knows the first level can slow down the aging process of cells in the human body if someone practiced it daily. The first exercise was called water meditation, which included someone meditating underwater and exhaling in a unique rhythm until they were completely out of breath and felt suffocating. Then they can take only a single breath of air before doing the entire process again, and they had to repeat this process for 3 hours, minimum. If they took even 2 breaths or they weren't suffocating in the water, this won't work and they had to start the entire process again. From Jacob's research, it was found that if this exercise was done correctly, the O2 in water will decrease, which was impossible for a human to achieve since they can't breathe underwater. That's why he believed what was written in the book was true. But the things went into the realm of fantasy once someone read the latter part of the water meditation. This includes them meditating underwater for 3 days and nights without taking any breath of air and continuing to exhale the air in their lungs extremely slowly, and only then they'll be able to qualify to practice the second level, which was even more absurd. Anyhow, Jacob was now in a world which was nothing but a fantasy in his previous world, so he couldn't help but think about this art of nature suddenly. He wanted to see if he could practice this art to a higher level or not. As for compressing his muscles with this art, it was a strange phenomenon that occurred after he held his breath underwater and exhaled it at 30 minutes intervals. His muscles felt pressure with gravity. This was also the biggest reason he was never able to increase his limit from 35 minutes. His old bones weren't strong enough, and he even concluded that any adult male can only do this process for 1 hour before their bones will crush if they keep doing this practice. However, now his body was like the tiger bull and he knew just how much a freak he was with this physique. He even tried to punch a 1-meter thick tree with his full strength and almost blasted it in half. That's why he now wanted to see if he could compress his muscles while practicing the water meditation. Most of all, he was curious about what happened if he really can complete the first exercise. Soon, Jacob reached a small pond while only 50 meters in size. He tossed his ragged clothes and jumped straight into the lake, creating a massive splash. As for any animal in it, he wasn't afraid anymore, but to his luck, there wasn't anything dangerous inside, except for some toads and tadpoles. The pond was 10 meters deep, which was enough for him. He first took a deep breath before diving toward the pond bed and sat cross-legged while he put his hands on his knees and closed his eyes. He was just too familiar with this process. In his previous life, he only stopped doing it after he found out there weren't any benefits left from just 35-minute meditation, and his old bones won't allow him to practice this exercise any longer. Anyway, as time passed, Jacob released a tiny air into the water every 3 minutes and continued to maintain his position. Strangely, the small tadpoles swarmed around Jacob as if he was their food, but they didn't touch him and only swim around him from a small distance. Half an hour passed like this, but Jacob was still peaceful like a statue as he released his small air every 3 minutes. Suddenly, he felt that strange pressure again, which started to weigh down on his body from every corner. But this time, he didn't feel the urge to stop and take a breath. Furthermore, he was now feeling a strange sensation in the water as this strange misty image started to appear in his mind. For some reason, he felt the more he breathes in the 3-minute rhythm, the clearer that image got. 1 hour passed. Jacob finally started to feel the tension in his entire body, but it wasn't enough to make him give up. Furthermore, he was started by the time he was underwater while continuing to release his breath. However, as soon as the 1-hour limit was reached, the gravity suddenly increased visibly, as his body dug slightly under the pond bed because of its weight. 5-time G-force, not its 10 times. Jacob instantly guessed, but he still felt he can hold one. But he was aghast when he thought no normal human can survive this much gravitational pull. If this G-force increases by 10 every hour, won't someone have to bear 720 G before they would complete this level? And is it still the minimal threshold to practice the second level? Just what kind of person wrote that art of nature, and how can it appear on Earth? Many questions rose in his mind, but he knew the answer to such questions was not just any random person could answer. Nevertheless, the misty image in his head also becomes clear while he continues to endure. His bulky muscles also broke in that pressure, and his heart beat fast to recover them. His recovery speed was abnormal with his abnormal heart. In the end, Jacob exhales his last bit of air when 1.5 hours passed until he started to feel suffocating in 5 minutes since the pressure again started to increase after this point. After 1 hour and 40 minutes, Jacob finally couldn't endure it and stood up so he could take a breath. But his eyes almost popped up when he stood because that 10G force still remained affix even after he opened his eyes and break the mediation stance. Jacob's heart lurched. What the fuck is going on? Chapter 79 A Raid Offer. Jacob's mind accelerated when he felt the 10G force on his entire body and he was 10 meters deep in the pond. Could it be I need to breathe to break free from this gravity? In the past, I was never able to increase the meditation time, so I still don't know about this particular effect. It was stupid to just practice it like this. I should have known better. Jacob had a grave expression, as he was now suffocating under this massive weight. But he wasn't willing to die by his own stupidity, so with extreme difficulty, he started to paddle his limbs. As a result, blood oozed out of his orifices. However, he had more grave things to worry about than some blood, so after paddling for 3 minutes, he was only 3 meters away from the surface. His eyes were now bloodshot and hazy. It was his will to live that kept pushing him toward the surface. Splash. Cough high. The moment Jacob appeared outside the water, the pressure on him instantly vanished as he coughed uncontrollably with a pale expression. I can't believe I nearly died the moment I let my guard down. Furious, he swims toward the surface. Sigh. He has a massive sigh of relief the moment he touched the ground and, with depleted energy, he lay on the muddy surface for a long time as he catches his breath. I should do this meditation on a lower water level surface in the future. He stammered and finally stood up. He couldn't help but notice his muscles were slightly compressed after this life-threatening experience. Several days later, Jacob appeared back in the rain town and directly headed toward Isaac's smithery to pick up his things. He was now silently planning to leave Rain Town for Lionheart City. He wanted to go there and check this apothecary guild and gunsmith guild out. Furthermore, he wanted to make weapons far more advanced than he had already seen all this time. Only then he will leave toward the rare region when he had complete confidence in protecting himself if he fell into some dangerous situation. As for staying here until he completed the cursed mark, he now knows better that it was just a pipe dream with only consuming uncommon animals' heart essence. He required rare beasts like Tiger Ball. Furthermore, as a result of his body growth this time, he guessed it shouldn't be wise to hasten the process too much, or he might turn into a slab of muscles after 20% competition. That was why it was now inevitable for him to use the water mediation until he reached his previous toned physique. But he didn't dare to practice it in a deep pond or lake anymore after his previous lesson. When he reached the smithery, he felt another presence in the shop for the first time. As he entered the shop, he saw a familiar curvaceous figure standing arrogantly. It was none other than Rosalia, who had a furious expression on her face as she looked at Isaac. He entered just in time to hear Isaac's gloomy reply. "Miss, your sword is beyond repair. Please don't be unreasonable. You can buy a new one or I can reforge it for you. But I can't restore it." Rosalia and Isaac's argument came to an abrupt halt when they noticed Jacob entering the shop. Rosalia's eyes widened when she saw the burly man with silver hair, and couldn't help but remembered a certain someone who rejected her team-up offer when she registered with Rain Town's mercenary agency. Isaac was also startled because the change in Jacob's physique was too great to be not noticed. However, Jacob wasn't fazed by their gazes and said nonchalantly, "Is everything ready?" Rosalia's face fell when she heard the familiar arrogant voice, and she knew it was indeed the same person. Isaac, on the other hand, smiled meaningfully. "Yes, sir. I was waiting for you all this time. Everything is ready and in the storage room. Please wait while I handle the customer, then I'll show you the goods." Jacob coolly nodded. It was indeed not wise to reveal the things he was about to pick up. "So, what do you decide, miss?" Isaac looked at Rosalia with an aggrieved expression, because she was being unreasonable and arguing with him over her broken sword. Rosalia coldly said, "I want my sword to restore, but you didn't have enough skills, so you're finding excuses." "Humph, just trash in the small trash town." Fuming, she picked up her black blade sword and stomped out of the shop before giving Jacob a death glare, which he completely took as a wind. Isaac's expression was also livid, but he knew that the woman was dangerous and if Jacob wasn't present, she might have not left with just humiliating him. "He's been there before. Please follow me." Isaac beaconed Jacob toward the underground storeroom. Inside the storage room, there were 3 crates separate from the other materials, and Isaac opened the lid to show Jacob the goods. The size of 3 crates was 2 cubic meters, and 2 of them were filled with Titian iron bricks, neatly arranged. The last one was filled with gun barrels, bullets, and small pieces, which were also for firearms. Isaac said with a hint of pride, "I hope you're not disappointed. There are 166 Titian iron bricks and, as per our agreement, I took 5 of them." Jacob nodded slightly. "Seal them." Isaac sealed the crates as he was told, and Jacob picked them with little difficulty. "It was a pleasure dealing with you," Isaac said while Jacob was leaving. Jacob chuckled and nodded slightly before he left the shop with 3 crates in his hands. However, as Jacob was heading toward his house, his eyes squinted ever so slightly before his lips curled into a wintry smile. Suddenly, Jacob picked up speed, and soon, he was jumping on people's rooftops while holding the crates like they were feathers. Not far away from him, a shadow suddenly flashed past some buildings as it healed him, but Jacob's speed was still superior and he remained ahead no matter how much that shadow tried to catch up to him. Soon, Jacob reached his house and landed in the small backyard, and put the crates down without breaking any sweat. He finally looked at the wall and said coolly, "So what do you want? You're quite impressive for a C rank." Just as this crisp, icy voice trailed off, a figure jumped inside Jacob's courtyard, and it was none other than Rosalia. Jacob chuckled. "And you're not just a D rank." His eyes suddenly turned murderous. "Last chance. Why did you follow me? What is this feeling?" Rosalia's eyes shimmered with a trace of fear. She felt like just been gawked by a rare beast. But she had her own pride and thought it was just her imagination and brushed it off. She said, "Since you figured it out, I won't beat around the bush this time. I'm indeed a C rank, but I can't tell you my background. As for why I follow you, I wanted to see if you're qualified to join this expedition. Which is the real reason I'm in this town." Jacob's expression remained apathetic. "I'm not interested. Leave before I change my mind." He had long guessed this woman was nothing but trouble from their first meeting, and now he appeared right as well. She wasn't just any random girl, and she was here for something which might bring nothing but trouble. Besides, there wasn't anything she can offer that can arouse his interest except if she offered a few rare beast hearts and blood, which he knew was impossible for these people. Rosalia's expression clouded when she heard his arrogant reply. She couldn't help but gritted her teeth as she said, "Not even a hidden green goblin research facility." Jacob's expression twisted when he heard goblin. If he hated any race in this world the most, then it would be the goblin race, without any doubt. These little monsters were just too hateful. Why the fuck do I want to raid their facility? Do you think I'm a fool? You're just here to take all those benefits for yourself, or I don't believe you won't have the means to hire some other C-rank mercenaries. Either this facility is too dangerous or you got this information from someone else and do not want to share it with other powers so you can take whatever in this research facility to yourself. Now don't waste my time and get out before I throw you out myself. And trust me, you don't want that to happen." Despite his hatred for the goblin race, he wasn't foolish enough to mess with them just because someone else said so. The goblin race was spread in the rare region where humans were extremely rare and probably sold like slaves, just like this body's previous owner. Rosalia's eyes widened when she saw the burly man with silver hair, and couldn't help but remembered a certain someone who rejected her team-up offer when she registered with Rain Town's mercenary agency. Isaac was also startled because the change in Jacob's physique was too great to be not noticed. However, Jacob wasn't fazed by their gazes and said nonchalantly, "Is everything ready?" Rosalia's face fell when she heard the familiar arrogant voice, and she knew it was indeed the same person. Isaac, on the other hand, smiled meaningfully. "Yes, sir. I was waiting for you all this time. Everything is ready and in the storage room. Please wait while I handle the customer, then I'll show you the goods." Jacob coolly nodded. It was indeed not wise to reveal the things he was about to pick up. "So, what do you decide, miss?" Isaac looked at Rosalia with an aggrieved expression, because she was being unreasonable and arguing with him over her broken sword. Rosalia coldly said, "I want my sword to restore, but you didn't have enough skills, so you're finding excuses." "Humph, just trash in the small trash town." Fuming, she picked up her black blade sword and stomped out of the shop before giving Jacob a death glare, which he completely took as a wind. Isaac's expression was also livid, but he knew that the woman was dangerous and if Jacob wasn't present, she might have not left with just humiliating him. He's been there before. "Please follow me." Isaac beaconed Jacob toward the underground storeroom. Inside the storage room, there were 3 crates separate from the other materials, and Isaac opened the lid to show Jacob the goods. The size of 3 crates was 2 cubic meters, and 2 of them were filled with Titian iron bricks, neatly arranged. The last one was filled with gun barrels, bullets, and small pieces, which were also for firearms. Isaac said with a hint of pride, "I hope you're not disappointed. There are 166 Titian iron bricks and, as per our agreement, I took 5 of them." Jacob nodded slightly. "Seal them." Isaac sealed the crates as he was told, and Jacob picked them with little difficulty. "It was a pleasure dealing with you," Isaac said while Jacob was leaving. Jacob chuckled and nodded slightly before he left the shop with 3 crates in his hands. However, as Jacob was heading toward his house, His eyes squinted ever so slightly before his lips curled into a wintry smile. Suddenly, Jacob picked up speed, and soon, he was jumping on people's rooftops while holding the crates like they were feathers. Not far away from him, a shadow suddenly flashed past some buildings as it healed him. But Jacob's speed was still superior and he remained ahead no matter how much that shadow tried to catch up to him. Soon, Jacob reached his house and landed in the small backyard, and put the crates down without breaking any sweat. He finally looked at the wall and said coolly, "So, what do you want? You're quite impressive for a C rank." Just as this crisp, icy voice trailed off, a figure jumped inside Jacob's courtyard, and it was none other than Rosalia. Jacob chuckled. "And you're not just a D rank." His eyes suddenly turned murderous. "Last chance. Why did you follow me? What is this feeling?" Rosalia's eyes shimmered with a trace of fear. She felt like just been gawked by a rare beast. But she had her own pride and thought it was just her imagination and brushed it off. She said, "Since you figured it out, I won't beat around the bush this time. I'm indeed a C rank, but I can't tell you my background. As for why I follow you, I wanted to see if you're qualified to join this expedition. Which is the real reason I'm in this town." Jacob's expression remained apathetic. "I'm not interested. Leave before I change my mind." He had long guessed this woman was nothing but trouble from their first meeting, and now he appeared right as well. She wasn't just any random girl, and she was here for something which might bring nothing but trouble. Besides, there wasn't anything she can offer that can arouse his interest except if she offered a few rare beast hearts and blood, which he knew was impossible for these people. Rosalia's expression clouded when she heard his arrogant reply. She couldn't help but gritted her teeth as she said, "Not even a hidden green goblin research facility." Jacob's expression twisted when he heard, "goblin." If he hated any race in this world the most, then it would be the goblin race, without any doubt. These little monsters were just too hateful. Why the fuck do I want to raid their facility? Do you think I'm a fool? You're just here to take all those benefits for yourself, or I don't believe you won't have the means to hire some other C-rank mercenaries. Either this facility is too dangerous or you got this information from someone else and do not want to share it with other powers so you can take whatever in this research facility to yourself. Now don't waste my time and get out before I throw you out myself. And trust me, you don't want that to happen." Despite his hatred for the goblin race, he wasn't foolish enough to mess with them just because someone else said so. The goblin race was spread in the rare region where humans were extremely rare and probably sold like slaves, just like this body's previous owner. Chapter 80 Brain Hunter. With Jacob's sliding attitude, Rosalia couldn't help but grit her teeth, but she had this dangerous feeling about this man, so she had no choice but to give up any idea of attacking. She didn't want to reveal her strength here and startle some wrong people. Disgruntled, she replied, "Fine, you can remain stubborn. But now that you know about this information, I don't want any rumors floating around, or trust me, you'll regret it." Just as she arrived, she jumped the wall and left without caring about Jacob's reaction. Jacob sneered. "She's overestimating herself." He picked up the crates and take them to the basement. He was planning on hiring a horse carriage in the morning and leaving this place. But there was one last thing he needed to take care of. As he entered the basement, and placed the crates in a corner and moved toward the back wall, he suddenly starts plucking the old bricks from a point and kept going until a bony figure appeared with a pig head. It was indeed Jacob's first companion, who escaped Decker's clutches and fell into his. If Jacob felt any kind of emotions for anyone in this world, it would be none other than Pighead, since he also lived in the same environment and they traveled together and Pighead has protected him many times. But regretfully, without those special liquid tanks, Pighead was as skinny as Jacob when he first appeared in this world. Now, their roles completely changed, as Jacob now had the same physique as the old Pighead. He had hidden Pighead here in the hope of finding those liquids, but he didn't encounter anyone who knows about them. Not even the Star Mercenary Agency warehouse has them. He had seen the list of goods in their shop. Now, not only Jacob was as strong as the old Pighead, stronger even. He found it more convenient to move alone. He didn't need a bodyguard anymore, especially a bodyguard who had a completely unknown mechanism. Pighead didn't have a beating heart nor did it breathe, but it can move and follow every kind of command, and Jacob mused that it was probably some kind of bio-product of Decker's research. He still had Decker's journal, which he didn't get the time to complete yet. Jacob looked at Pighead's completely dried-up body as some kind of black pigment was leaking from its orifice, and it was only standing because Jacob hadn't removed the bricks from its entire torso. Sigh. It seemed you're already dead. Jacob sighed with a hint of regret as he looked at the gem bracket in his hand. I should take his parasite gem as well. It was probably a higher level than mine. Don't worry, I'll keep this parasite gem as a remembrance of yours. He draws his short sword and cradled its dark blade horizontally, just slightly below its pig ear and eye socket. Goodbye. Finished saying. His hand instantly moved in a blur-like motion and flashed past its entire face like it was a piece of butter. The very next moment thereafter, a clean black line appeared, which was black blood. Jacob pushed its head slightly with the blade, and the head slid down like a cap and opened half of its face. Jacob didn't want to damage the gem, so he simply cut half of Pighead's skull, separating the brain with it at the top as well. Now it was very simple to retrieve the parasite gem. However, when Jacob was about to crouch down to search for the parasite gem, his eyes opened wide slightly when he noticed the movement in that dark brain matter on the floor, which looked extremely rotten. Thereupon, he saw tiny tentacles before a 7 inches worm-like thing crawled out of that dark matter. A centipede. Jacob instantly recognized. This centipede was pitch black, 7 inches long centipede with 13 body segments. It was eyeless, and instead, it has 2 pairs of red antennas on each side of its head and 24 pairs of black legs. Strangely, this centipede stopped a few inches away from Jacob while keeping its red antennas swaying. This strange action also stopped Jacob from stomping on it. This. His eyes suddenly widened before a strange idea appeared in his head. He couldn't help but look at the gem bracelet, which he thought was some high-level parasite gem control. Move back, he said as he looked at the centipede with a hint of uncertainty. The very next moment, that dark centipede instantly followed what Jacob said and moved back in a straight line. Stop. It stopped. Form a circle. It turned into a centipede ring. Jacob's eye shimmered with astonishment and elation. Just what kind of insect is this? It can understand and follow my command, and it can probably control a dead body as well. That's why I never felt Pighead's heartbeat or breathing, nor did I discover its existence. I wonder how that bastard, Decker, got it and from where. He had no information about the insects, and a tiny group of extremely dangerous insects was noted in the book he had on beasts. I should ask the expert. I need to know more. Cursed immortality. He knew if anyone in the world had unparalleled knowledge about the living, it was probably this book. The moment Immortica appeared, strings of words appeared. Ha 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 ha. You finally found it, and here I presumed you'll leave this little toy somewhere or will kill it accidentally. But I have to give you credit for precisely extracting it. Jacob's face turned dark when he read it and couldn't help but cussed. I have urged to shoot a bullet in your wily ass. Now, cut the nonsense and tell its species in detail. Ha ha ha. Try it. It wrote impetuously first, which made Jacob even more exasperated. But he didn't rebuke anymore, since he knew this sadist book will just keep going on and on with its sadist laugh. Then it finally answered the real question. Tisk, tsk, you're no fun. Anyway, that centipede is called Eclipse Alipes imhoff. You can simply call it a brain hunter as well. It's a tier 9 species. As for why they called the brain hunter, it's because they lived inside brains for the most part of their life and can't live more than a month without a healthy brain. They not only slowly consume the rich brain matter, but they can control their host body's every action, and they are extremely intelligent. A completely mature brain hunter has already changed over 20 hosts in its life. As for this one, it's only half mature and can only take control up to tier 6 species. Any higher and it'll die. A mature brain hunter had over 30 body segments, and they're extremely deadly as they control up to Tier 12 species and lived for almost 200 years if they keep changing their hosts. They can even speak the language of their host and mimic their heartbeat and breathing habits. That's why it's extremely hard to identify mature ones. You might be living with one and having passionate intercourse with it daily. You would never know. Ha 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 ha. Jacob's expression turned dark from astonishment when he read the last comment. But he was more aghast as he glanced at the obedient brain hunter a few inches away from him. According to Immortality, rarer species fell into Tier 6 to 9 group, which means this brain hunter is a peak tier rarer species. Although this looks just like a harmless centipede, no one would ever know this thing is highly intelligent and can even mimic other behaviors. So, this is what a rarer species can do. But how the hell does that fucker, Decker, get his hands on it and have it under control? He felt a faint chill in his spine just thinking about it. Then how is it under control of this gem? He couldn't help but ask. That's for you to find. Remember, I can't answer questions other than those related to the scripture. Ha 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 ha. Jacob sneered. You just want to keep yourself entertained. Nonetheless, just tell me if it'll die in the pendant space after a month, or if it'll remain in this state as long as I keep it there. Oh, what a cunning question. You want to research how it was controlled and wanted to see if it'll escape out of your clutches if you let it consume more brains. You are quite predictable. He. Nevertheless, the answer to your question. Yes, you are right about the pendant space. As long as you keep it there, it'll appear outside in the same condition you put it in. You should be thanking. Scram. Jacob instantly closed the book after getting his answer. He simply can't endure its antics for long. He finally looked at the brain hunter and crouched down with cold light in his eyes. Come here. He put his hand on the floor and the brain hunter instantly zigzagged and crawled on his hand, and the very next moment it vanished into the space of infinity pendant.